All right. Hey, folks. All right. I'm going to be real honest. This is going to be a real low key, nothing too fancy, not a whole lot of razzle dazzle. I ain't talking politics. I don't want to talk about how evil the world is. We just talking Miss Jackson. So I don't expect there to be a whole lot of folks on here. But I did want to chop in and say what's up and give my 2 cents and just kind of say a bit of something because I figured if a whole Janet Jackson documentary comes on and I don't have some content, I'm going to get cussed out because I know some of y'all been waiting. Um, so I know I didn't want to do this live because I know the West Coast, I think it's just now airing. So West Coast, no worries. Y'all can catch the replay. By the time it goes off, this should already be over with. I don't even think we're going to be on for more than an hour. Let me just give a few minutes to get my hellos in. I'm only expecting really like 70 people on this thing out of the normal set of few hundred we normally get. Because again, everybody doesn't rock with my girl Janet the way everybody, or at least the way I do, and it's okay. But that's all right. But anyway, let me get my shout outs in. By the way, there will be spoilers, and we're only covering part one because this is maybe an hour after the part one just aired, or part 1 and 2. 3 and 4 airs tomorrow. I'm probably not doing a live on it. I'll probably actually do an actual video that's like edited and all the other content and stuff. Plus, I'm gonna be in my feelings. I already know because as soon as I get to the Super Bowl part, it's just gonna bring some triggers back. It was a rough time, y'all. It was rough. But anyway, what's up, Alan? What's that? Hack sign KT, Queen Naya, Patricia Davis Moore. Hate to miss this live, but I just got home, need to watch. But yeah, Patricia, go ahead and watch it. We'll still be here when it's done. The replay ain't going nowhere. So yeah, no worries. If you're on the West Coast or in even like the Mountain Time Zone or Central or whatever, go on and watch the documentary. Like, don't miss Janet over me. It's just me. I'll still be here. All right. So pretty much we're just having us a nice little conversation. 2008, B. Scott said, I rock with her, but I won't be trusting any documentary. See, the difference is she's the one that's like behind it. I always support a documentary when the actual artist is the one putting it together because it's their actual story as opposed to when other people try to tell somebody's narrative. But yeah, West Coast, yes, y'all go ahead and enjoy. I think it's about to air, right? And y'all got 3 minutes before it comes on, West Coast. Anyway, so for those who are new, because I know I've been getting a lot of like new subscribers in the last maybe few months. If y'all did not know, I serve as the second captain of the Mid-Atlantic chapter of the Rhythm Nation. And me and Janet Jackson go a long way. So because there was a documentary, I said, I'm about to talk about this thing. Look, I didn't even get to shave or nothing. I'm not going to tell you what my hair looks like under this hat. Like, look, this is what I really look like. Anyway, but what did you guys think? Yeah, it was a lot. But like I said, Janet was 100% involved in this. The way, as far as the setup of the documentary, they started filming in 2017. Because initially, from what I read, it was supposed to only be a documentary following her State of the World tour. That was a tour in which she kind of came back after the pregnancy and the baby. It was supposed to just specifically follow that because I remember around 2017, you were starting to see the articles about she was doing a Netflix deal for a docuseries following the tour. And I think because there was probably just so many layers to uncover, they said, let's just go ahead and do a full documentary on her life, which I think is dope. And it looks like they possibly could have, it's a 4-hour documentary, but it looks like it could have honestly probably been 6 because there's so much more that could be said. But I think you don't want to almost have it oversaturated where you lose your audience. So it's kind of like they have to pick and choose what you're going to really cover. Because I think my only critique thus far, I would like for just a bit more of her music to be highlighted. But I think because the story is there's so many layers that's being unfolded. And again, Janet don't talk about a whole lot. And as far as her personal life, and now you're hearing and, seeing all these clips that are unreleased and stuff, that kind of makes up for it. But I think if you're somebody who's watching, you don't really follow her like that, or you don't care, it may be hard to kind of see the impact thus far as what she's been able to do career-wise. Because, I mean, Janet has all kind of, and mind you, we're only at Rhythm Nation so far in the documentary. But, there's so many accolades to be had just from those 2 eras. Let me pause for 1 second, jump into some comments. We're going to keep it moving. Like I said, we're not going to be on all night. This is not going to be one of the 3-hour sessions. Sorry, y'all. We just did that Thursday. But yeah, what up, Raywin? Yeah, but I'm enjoying the documentary thus far. He said, "Oh, okay, I can trust Janet than when the Obamas are behind their own. Yeah, see, yeah, okay. Yeah, if it was some unauthorized thing, I wouldn't have even been doing this live. But since it's her, I'm like, okay, cool. Um, Jalil Mason said how they talked about Joe Jackson was beautiful. That was the other thing. I think they did a good job of humanizing Joe. I think the problem is, like with a family like the Jacksons, every child is going to have their own interpretation of how Joe was. And then you add the piece with the media in as well. And it's no secret. Joe catches a lot of smoke, a whole lot. And then I think even when the movie series came out, the Jackson 5 American Dream, that kind of made things even worse. And so, he's often caught so much smoke for his parenting skills. Um and I think for somebody like a Janet, she's like, I know y'all have your thoughts, but it's still my dad. And there was a part in there that was interesting where they had said, Joe gave up his fatherhood and then the kids gave up their childhood. I'm like, dang. And it kind of just highlights how this music industry, yeah, there's so many really talented people, but you really do sacrifice a lot in order to really climb and gain. And I think the part I did like, when after Janet had already fired Joe and Control had blew up, and she was at her um, certification party because the album had, sold a few million copies, and then they had asked Joe, how do you feel about Janet firing you? And the thing he said was, well, she's always, I support her, and she needs me, she can always come to me for whatever. Like, that's the good thing. I think people may have thought like she fired Joe and it was F you forever. But I will say it was interesting in that clip where you saw her and Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis and them fighting in the studio. Look, they were fighting while she was recording the song "You Need Me." That was apparently the song that was kind of directed towards Joe. So there might have been some moments where they were back and forth a little bit. Because even if you listen to the lyrics of that song, like, now that you are older and you begin to see family is important and to be there if you need some other stuff like that. But interesting. But the only thing that makes me a little sad though, because I'm apparently, if they're filming for 5 years, that means she had a camera crew with her most likely when Joe died, which is going to be really sad if they show that. I was at Essence in 2018, which was maybe a week and a half after Joe died. And I remember Janet gave this really heartwarming speech, like right in the middle of the concert. Like she kind of paused the show and maybe talked about Joe for like 5 or 6 minutes. Really kind of sad. But I can't imagine, especially as somebody whose father died when I was young or younger. That's a tough loss already. And it kind of just highlights the fact that with time, things take place, people eventually transition into whatever's next. And that has to be really, really tough, especially if you kind of already feel that some of that time was robbed because of career restraints and because of the industry. And then, right when you kind of build that piece or you build, what it is that you want, he's gone. That has to be kind of tough. All right, let me go back to some comments. I'll tell you what I hated though. Them commercials was killing me softly. I was like, dang, every 5 minutes I got a commercial. And listen, I had already told everybody in my circle, don't call me. I don't want to talk. This is not the time to call and see how I'm doing. You're gonna have to wait till after Saturday. Like after Saturday at like probably midnight. Do not call. And it was like I had like 9 missed calls. I'm like, y'all don't listen. Everybody calling. Folks trying to call and ask me what channel it's on. Look, send it in a text message. But anyway, let's see. Six Sad World said, I wish I caught this live from the beginning. Yo, you're good. We just started 8 minutes ago and we ain't even said nothing yet. You're fine. We're just chopping it up. I should have honestly done this on a Zoom, but that way I could really get some more input from everybody else who wanted to share their 2 cents, but that's okay. Scrolling. Deanna Newton said, I've been waiting on this documentary. Love that she gets to tell her story through her own words and eyes. And I think that was the important part. Like, because Janet she doesn't share a lot. And even the things that she shares is very controlled a lot of times. She has a narrative. Like, God, only like diehard Janet fans will remember this. But when Janet came out with that book, it was like we almost all memorized her answers on the whole press tour. She'd be like, it's not an autobiography. It's just, a story with little anecdotes from my child. I'm like, she kept saying that in every interview. I'm like, damn, Janet, you're gonna have to mix it up a little bit. But yeah, she's very orchestrated. And I think that's more so an act of like kind of just protecting her peace. But yeah, you don't really know a whole lot about her minus what she tells you. Even when they try to put the rumors and stuff out there, you don't, you can only speculate. Which is why I was kind of like, I need some people to chill out a bit. I saw, you know, the media publications were saying, oh, Janet slams her brother Michael for fat shaming her. And I was like, y'all don't even be paying attention, because as far as that, like that narrative and that story of as far as how the siblings made fun of each other, she's been telling that story for years. It's nothing new under the sun. It was in the book. She's been telling that story since like the 90s. So I don't know why all of a sudden the media hopped on that and tried to paint it out to be that she was trying to tear down Michael. Because listen, Janet has always been very protective of her brother's legacy. Always. Like, you can't say nothing off the wall about Michael, because Janet cuts you after that. You're done. Like, ask Jamie Foxx after he made that Michael Jackson joke at the 2002 VMAs. All right. I think they're cordial now, but I heard that there was some words spoken about that. Like, don't come after my brother, please. Don't ever do that again. Same thing with Chris Rock. Like, she was always very protective of what people have to say about him. But yeah. 2008, B. Scott said, is it looking like Kyle with no wig under that hat? Ain't no juices and berries under this today. Y'all ain't about to see no little drop curls. That's, you know, I was laying on the couch and all under my little, I got a little weighted blanket over there. I was under the blanket, just, oh, this is good. So nah, y'all don't want to know what this looks like under this hat. All right, I'm gonna keep it moving. Nigel M said, would be great if they came out with an uncut version. I'm sure that'll have everything. Yeah, I'm sure there's a whole lot we didn't get. I ain't trying to be that messy person, but I thought when they started talking about Paula Abdul, they were going to talk about her and Jackie, and why Jackie had to do the victory tour with a cast on and only did a few shows because he got hit by a car. And I'm going to leave it right there, because the rest of it's all alleged. And I'm saying that YouTube is getting some folks out of here for saying some things that are not true. I don't want to catch any of that smoke. The Hill 916 said Michael Jackson's level of fame was just different. Mad they had a fallout. 100. Yeah, I think they did have a fallout, but sometimes I don't even think it's I don't even think it's bad blood. I know their careers were very demanding, and she did say there was a period where they didn't even see each other for a good 2 years. And I think that was sometime between maybe 96 and 99. It was right after they'd done Scream. They hadn't really seen each other for like a good 2 years or something like that. But yeah, that's life. And, you know, Michael was already going through enough stuff anyway. And Michael kind of was, you know, kind of setting up shop in different locations and trying to kind of stay out of the public eye on occasion, or, you know, touring Europe a lot. So, but good shout out. Listen, I know Renee catches some smoke, but I'm glad he recorded some footage. Let's see. J Law said, was this planned? No, not really. I was actually going to add this to my In the News segment. And then I was like, actually, I'll give Jenna her own platform. Wade M. Jr. said, the first few seconds in the mural got me. Yeah, I didn't expect that. I was like, y'all got Janet already crying in the first 2 minutes. Y'all about to, Lord. Oh, this is about to be one of those kind of documentaries. I don't like seeing people I like cry. I don't like that, but that's good. Tahir Hunter said, the marriage to James, the laying to rest the rumors about her having a child with James. Yeah, I didn't think they would talk about it, but I was like, okay, Janet's actually really going in on that. And I'm glad she cleared it up, saying, you know, why would I keep a child away from their father? And the other thing, at this point, even if there would have been a secret child, the child would have been about 40 years old at this point. So I'm sure we would have met the child by now. The child would have came out and said, all right, it is what it is. Like, but no, I never really bought into that. That was a popular rumor when I was in high school too. And even when they said the piece about, yeah, Reby was the one watching the child, that was the rumor that was out when I was in school. They're like, yeah, they gave it to Reby. And then people used to try to put two and two together, and they used to try to say, yeah, because Janet was really big in the When I Think of You video, and then she was skinny in Pleasure Principle. And that's what happened. She was pregnant, or she just had the baby around When I Think of You, and then all the baby weight came off for the Pleasure Principle. I'm like, y'all just be saying anything. She was not even with James DeBar's body. And that's almost 87 going into 88. Like, all right. Lucky Charm said, where can we watch this? It's playing on Lifetime and it's playing on A&E. For those who want to catch it right now, I think the rerun for the first part on Lifetime comes on at 11 again, and I think A&E comes on at midnight. And then part 2, which covers, it looks like the Janet era until the present, comes on tomorrow at 8 on both networks. He kept saying your dad, TC17. That was a little weird too. But you know, I do that with my brother. I have to catch myself because sometimes when we talk about our mom, I'll always say my mom, and he'd be like, I'm like, my bad. I'm just so used to saying it. What up, Armin Sinclair? Carrie D. Singleton. Oh, what up? He said, I'm late to the party, but I'm sure your analysis is proper and accurate. I don't even know if this is an analysis because I'm going from the top of the dome right now. Let me go into a few of the parts. Um, what else did I enjoy? I really like the setup going in as far as just kind of putting things into context with the brothers, because I think people forget just how big the Jacksons were, especially like the Jackson Five. Um, in this era we're in where there's always these comparisons and people are already trying to erase Michael's legacy to kind of uplift other artists. I don't think people realize like the Jackson Five by themselves were already a machine. And then there was an extension of that when they morphed into the Jacksons after Jermaine left and Randy joined the group and they switched labels. And then there was still the Michael Jackson. And then Michael Jackson even had like three major evolutions. Like people think Off the Wall sometimes is his first album. And I'm like, no, I think that was album number 5. And Off the Wall was already a huge era, like huge. Like, you know, Off the Wall, in my opinion, would have been the equivalent of how big something like an Usher Confessions was, as far as it selling like 10 million copies in the US. And Off the Wall is one of those first albums that really has like that string of top 3 singles, you know, as far, I think it was 4 of them, like all were like top 3 singles or something like that. It's one of those first albums where you start having more of a cohesive theme for a project where it's not just you, the goal is you have a hit and then you put a bunch of filler on the album and put it out there, and then another album comes out in another 3 or 4, and not 3 or 4, maybe like 8 or 9 months kind of. Off the Wall, in my opinion, same with like a Marvin Gaye, what's going on, and a few other albums, or some of those albums in my opinion that kind of signal the idea of concept albums, or the idea of an artist really letting a body of work have its own life, and not just we got a hit, we need to record some other standards and get some producers in here and get this crap on out so we can make some money. It's like you started to see. I always say Marvin Gaye's What's Going On is one of those albums that does that. I think a lot of the Parliament and Funkadelic projects did that as well. But I think with Off the Wall, because it was so successful, that's when it became almost a standard and became the norm. And that's just the Off the Wall era. And then, you know, we get the Thriller and it's history from there. And mind you, like the other thing is like Off the Wall is like right, I want to say in between Triumph and Destiny. Like he did Off the Wall and was still promoting. I think he had just finished promoting the Destiny album, and then Off the Wall drops. And then they yeah, so yeah, interesting. All right, let me keep going. Um Yeah, he said, I enjoyed the first 2 hours. Glad Renee allowed his footage to be shown, which also included me for a reason, or included me for a second. Sorry. I have to own a copy of this. My family was excited. I ain't gonna lie. Look, if they start showing some of that state of the world footage, I'm gonna be looking to see if I'm in the audience somewhere. Because at the DC show, I ran into Gil, the choreographer, and I was over here trying to look. Y'all hire. Y'all need some more dancers for the next leg, and her little camera crew was walking right past. So I was like, maybe I'm in the shadow of that. And then when she went on TRL, to premiere Made for Now, I was in the audience, but you know, TRL's for like the 15-year-olds, so they had me in the back. Like I was in the back. I'm like, damn. And I'm over here side-eyeing like the 20-year-olds that were in the front. I'm like, they don't even know who she is. I was so annoyed. And it was weird because that was the same day Aretha Franklin died. So it was just, there was a lot going on. And then I went to the Metamorphosis show as well. And then Essence. And somehow I ended up at some rooftop party, and one of the people on her team, the Joy Harris guy, was at the same party I was at. So I was like, I don't know, maybe I'll be in some B-roll footage. I don't know. We'll see. But I doubt it, but that'd be cool if it was. But yeah, that's kind of dope. Renee released that. I didn't think Janet and Renee were on good terms at all. And by the way, for those who are like really big Janet fans, I know her background singer Romeo had a kind of series, the touring with Janet, or at least as far as the Janet tour, and he kind of talks about all that. He does confirm that the Janet tour was professionally recorded. There had always been rumors about it, but I didn't, and I figured it would be because you have the What'll I Do video, and even the footage from the Because of Love music videos. But I don't know if we'll ever get that tour. They got some, you know, logistics to work out legally, but that'd be really dope if we get that. Jeremiah Border said, yep, exactly. Remember the label wanted Janet to do a family expose album similar to Control, but Janet wanted to do Rhythm Nation. Yeah, they wanted to do a Control 2. That was the idea. And I'm glad she didn't, because I feel like it would have been dated. You don't want to do too much of the same thing. And I think that's what made Rhythm Nation great, is just, in addition to the more socially conscious songs like The State of the Worlds and The Knowledge and Rhythm Nation, it's still a very bright and fun album. So you have the songs like Escapade, which I think might be one of my favorite Janet songs, like Escapade and All Rights and Love Will Never Do Without You, like all those really fun songs that kind of bring a bright energy as well. Oh, there's really 300 of y'all. I didn't think this many people would really care to chat about Janet, but okay, that's cool. Tykel Williams said, "Do you think What About from Velvet Rope is about Renee because they showed footage showed the footage of him proposing to Janet on the okay, you're digging deep. They showed footage proposing to Janet on the beach, and the lyrics said, 'We walked along the beach. You asked me to be your wife.'" I think, well, in that song though, she says it was at night though, like on a moonlit night. Maybe the song is like a hybrid of just a bunch of relationships. I always thought it was just about James DeBarge because he was from what I read, he was the one knocking her upside the head. So I always thought it was about him, especially if he already had an issue with substance abuse. You know, when people when they get into those moments, especially if they're going through withdrawal or they don't have what they need and they need that quick fix, that's when you see the worst in people come out. So it kind of seems like it fit with that. But I could understand the idea of her kind of mixing both relationships and putting it into the song. I could see it. It seems like Renee, I mean, right now he's getting a lot of praise, but after watching that Romeo video, Renee seemed like a very interesting person. I'll say that. Let me keep it scrolling here. That's a good question. I'm glad you caught that. I didn't even think of that. But I've always said, like, I will give this to Renee. Like, I think one of the things that I always felt made Janet work was like when she had that magical formula and the cards were aligned. One card was Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis. Another card was like Anthony Thomas as well as Tina Landon. I think Renee was a great visual person as far as like ideas and imaging. So in that aspect, I think the other card is when Janet is actually hungry for it. You can tell when she's like really into something and when she's just kind of going through with the motions, even like with her tours and stuff. You can tell which shows really she's like putting the work in. And sometimes when she's like, all right, let me go ahead and do this show because y'all won't stop asking. So I think like all of those play like a huge role, as well as, again, and I kind of cover some of this in my So It Happened video, but even like the machine that supported her as far as how much pull she had at radio and MTV and all of those kind of things. Let's see. Jeremiah Border said, "I don't like the commercials weren't." Oh, I what? Okay. Oh, I don't think the commercials were a big issue for me because it felt like they kept them all down to 3 minutes instead of the normal 25. I'll say at least the segments were really long before they went to commercial, but it's just like they leave you at the good cliffhanger because as soon as she said that bit about the drugs, I'm like, what she just say? And then it went to commercial. I'm like, dang. That's all right. Jalil Mason said the kids were actually watching topless women. Yeah, them kids over there sneaking to the little burlesque shows after they finish their show. Get over there getting look at MJ and them over there trying to get a sniff. All right. Marie said, "Look, he said I ain't watching it, but I'm here for the review. That's fine with me. Do what you got to do." But no, that mural still got me. That was sad. Um, Jalil Mason said Thriller really was actually a curse for Michael, even while being the biggest being the biggest in history in regards to music. I think Thriller was hard because I think you sell like 47 million albums in 2 years in like pretty much, and then you fast forward now. I don't know what the official toll for Thriller is, but it's way up there because I know back in like 1999, 2000, it was already at like 60 million copies globally. That album's probably close to maybe 100 million at this point. And I feel like that's one of those albums everybody has, but that has to be hard to sell that much. And because Michael wanted to do 100 million for Bad, but it didn't quite happen. But at least the tour, you had an audience of 4 million people, or 4.5 million people at the tour. It has to be hard because it's pretty much accepting that that is your peak, but you don't want that to be your peak because you have so many other ideas and so many other things you want to do. Like that's the work. Like I've always said, sometimes with a lot of artists, some of their best work is not even the stuff that's the most successful. It's the stuff that comes when people stop caring or when things slow down. That's why I always give Velvet Rope so much hype because I'm like, wow, that to go so left field from what was expected and really just do what she wanted and pretty much do an abstract album. The album does not sell. It didn't sell like what the previous three, as far as, Janet, Control, and Rhythm Nation did, but it's the one that gets a lot of the acclaim. And I think it's because, again, she was just hungry for, I guess coming to a space where she could really be her own kind of artist. And I think an album like the Velvet Rope was needed at that time because had Janet's Velvet Rope been another album of stadium anthems and, what you would call ear candy that's going to shoot to the top of the charts, I think her artistry would have kind of started to be seen as somebody like a Paula Abdul. And it's not a diss to Paula, but I think because Paula, well, she did have like that album with Crazy Cool on it where she went a little bit deeper as far as what she was doing. Even with Spellbound, there are some songs on there that are a little bit more, um, they're not, the sole purpose is not just to be a hit. But with Paula, people kind of look at her as almost a phase. And mind you, when Paula was here, she was killing it. She was killing the game. I think she has 5 #1 singles on her, under her own belt. But I think because there's not a lot of projects under her belt that go into different layers and really test a bunch of different sounds, she's kind of seen as almost a novelty act, and her artistry is almost not taken seriously, even though she was killing the game. And I think if Janet would have stayed the route of kind of keeping everything extremely commercially appealing, I don't know if she would have lasted this long. I think that's what kind of gives her an edge. All of her albums are very different. And as far as the big five, Control, Rhythm Nation, Janet, Velvet Rope, All For You, especially as you go from Janet to All For You, like you look at just the layers and how deep her albums start to get, where she starts talking about like depression or even bisexuality or, internet love or death or, abusive relationships and, just so many different things that take place. I think as an artist, your job is to grow. And sometimes when you grow artistically, that also means closing the door on some things that are commercially popular. And I think that's why so many big artists have these big, giant commercial peaks. But then a lot of times the music that people really, really eat up as far as like the critics and the stuff that gets the acclaim is the stuff that doesn't even top the charts sometimes. But anyway, Sweet Petey said, I hope they do not rush the next 2 documentaries as far as the next 2 episodes. I think they'll kind of zip a little bit through the janitor and some of Velvet Rope, and then I really think there's going to be, I feel like that whole last hour is just going to be from 2004 to the present, honestly. They could have made a whole documentary just on the Super Bowl, to be honest, with how all the foolery that happened around that. Because I look at even like, y'all know I always gas up the Chicks or the Dixie Chicks with their documentary, the Shut Up and Sing. That's a really good documentary if you want to watch it. But that one just covers their experience after they make the statements about George Bush, because we were getting ready to go into Iraq. And, that just follows them from 2003 to about 2007. And there's so much that happens in just that moment as far as them being blacklisted and, man, I mean, gun threats at the concerts and country radio. And the saddest part is when they go on tour. Well, what's interesting, they already had the tour announced back in 03 and 04. Right? They make the statements about Bush. It pisses off all the conservative Americans, and all of a sudden they're public enemy #1, and they hate America, and they love the terrorists, and all that crap. But the concert tickets were already bought and sold, so their fans still ended up going to the shows, and so they'd have the segment where Natalie would say, "All right, I know half y'all in here ready to boo, so go ahead and boo," and then the people boo, and then they get on with the show. And so they still had a very successful arena tour. But then when they come out with that next album, the Taking a Long Way Round album in like 06, 07, and they get ready to launch the next tour, there's some promoters in some cities that are like, don't even sign up over here because we're not going to sponsor it at all. So they were like major cities that, they were really popular in that they couldn't even book a show in. And so the tour ended up having a lot of dates that didn't do well. They did really well in Canada, but yeah, it just kind of highlighted how quick everything just. And I was like, and that was just in that little 3-4 year span. Like, remember, they had a whole career starting from the early 90s, even before Natalie joined the group. So it's interesting. Documentaries can go in so many different directions. But yeah, but like I said earlier, I do hope they spend a little bit more time on the music and kind of highlight the impact. I think people kind of forget, especially because a lot of people just aren't old enough to remember if you weren't there. Because even for me, my memories are the second half of Janet's career, to be honest. Like, I wasn't born when Control came out, or actually by the time I was born, Control had pretty much just wrapped. I was old enough for Rhythm Nation, but my earliest memories of Rhythm Nation are kind of like Love Will Never Do Without You. I was too young to remember, most of that, because I was born in 88. So, I remember what was kind of happening in 91, what was happening in 90 a little bit. My real memories would be the Janet era. And then I didn't really become a huge fan until I saw the Velvet Rope tour. But, yeah, there's like an impact that was there. Like, I don't think people realize, like, when she used to go on tour, like even that Janet tour, I think she had 5 nights at Madison Square Garden, in addition to additional shows at Radio City Music Hall on like another leg. Like, a lot of times when she toured, like especially major cities like Chicago, DC, LA, Houston, Atlanta, she'd be at some of these venues for 3, 4, 5 nights. Like, that's how big she was at the time. But because time has passed, and Les Moonves worked really, really hard to destroy her, and kind of erase her career and her legacy. You have a whole generation that's just now being introduced to her, because she's always just been seen as kind of like, in the later years, almost like this has been that's just Michael's little sister, and the only reason she made it was because Michael was Michael. And that's kind of the narrative that's been put out there. So I've been glad that she's been able to kind of get her things since about, what, 2018. That's really when you started to see the legacy kind of get a refresh button, and she started winning all those awards again. Anyway, somebody said Janet was the first Beyonce. You really don't know her. I don't know what you're trying to say. I don't. Okay. Um, I wouldn't even see Janet was the first Beyonce, because, not to be rude, and this is not to come after Beyonce, but when you're talking chart stats, um, how do I word this? Beyonce fans, please don't fight me. But when you're talking that Hot 100, like, Janet and Beyonce's Hot 100 success does not even parallel with each other. Even if you add Beyonce's work with Destiny's Child, Janet still like just cleans house, because she just was, it was that much pull. I think Beyonce fares very well in the touring world, though. Like, that was kind of really where her bread and butter was. And a lot of people kind of fry up Janet, was like, oh, well, she didn't do stadium tours. And it's like, she could have, though, because just like I said, in those cities where she had multiple nights and 5 nights at Madison Square Garden, she could have done stadium tour. And I will say, she is only one of 3 women from the United States to have a sold out stadium tour in South Africa: Janet, Celine Dion, Tina Turner. Anyway, let's keep it moving. Wade, Junior said, it's just scrolled. What did he just say? I got to scroll it back up. That was funny. Okay, I don't know where the little joke just went, but dang, whatever. He was just saying, no curls dropping today. Let the naps be free. Yeah, it's a little dry up under here. That's all right. Rakai said, was Renee controlling? I can't say yes or no, because I wasn't there, but it's interesting. If you watch the Velvet Rope Tour DVD, there's some moments where, like, you can see Renee in the side of the curtain just standing there, like, watching on the side. I'm like, dang, what he about? Okay, God. But yeah. Let's see. Boom, boom, boom. Oh, that was my other beef. I like that they showed this clips from the Rhythm Nation tour, but I wish they didn't overdub it with the studio vocals, because now people are gonna think Janet was on that tour singing to the CD. Like, go back and find them. If you would like to hear the live vocals from the Rhythm Nation tour, I suggest they have the Rhythm Nation tour live from Rotterdam on YouTube. They have a show from Ottawa. They have the Tokyo one is on there as well. But all of those, you hear the raw vocal. So I suggest you go and check those out, because people are going to think she was over there singing to the CD. But, they enhance it for the documentary, so it just kind of highlights a bit. Simply Simone said these journalists better stop with the slander, especially after Cardi won in court. Listen, that's, y'all see why I don't be talking trash about folks. I mean, my channel's not that big anyway, so I don't think I'd ever have to worry about that. But yeah, just make sure whatever you put out there, it's out there forever. Don Worthy said a problem with evaluating Joe Jackson is it's never in the context of the time or what it takes to be both successful and black in this country and the industry. I'm not defending all of his actions. I don't even think you have to even say that part. It's an honest truth. I think Joe is a representative and reflective of what was happening at that time. Joe wasn't the only parent that parented the way that Joe did. Joe just recognized he saw some talent in his children, and he did what he thought at that moment in time was, what could help them get to where they needed to be. And they got there. It's just sadly, maybe the emotional support may have not always been there, but I think he comes from an era where a lot of men weren't given that grace, because everything, it's just, when you can tie some conversations into racism and systemic, like, you can tie it into everything, but we're not doing that tonight, because we're trying to keep some positive energy tonight. Um, um, let's see, was Michael hooked on? So was Michael hooked on that milk? He stayed away from his family. I don't know if milk means drugs, but no, I just think no one will ever know what it's like to be in, like, Michael's shoes, especially between 82 and I'll say about 92-ish. I don't think there's ever been an entertainer that's been that big. And even if you're a close family, I don't think people understand what goes on in your head. You have the whole world watching you all the time, ready to just rip you into shreds at every moment. And you've created a version of yourself that even you can't compete with. I think that's something that's very draining emotionally and internally. And it makes it extremely hard to even just operate normally. And then again, they never had childhoods. You know, Michael had been practicing since he was like 5. And so, imagine that all your friends are going to the little school dance and you can't go because you got a show all the way in Sri Lanka somewhere. Your friends are going to the skateboard park. You don't get to go because you got to tape some TV show. Your friends want to, it's a sleepover. Everybody, they're going to laser tag in the morning. You can't go because you have to do a press appearance on some talk show in Germany that you've never heard of, where you're going to have to sit and wait for the translator to ask you the question. And then you have to answer and give a poised response. Like, you're doing all that at like the age of 8 years old. Like, imagine. And then you probably always tell yourself, well, it's okay. There'll be next time. And before you know it, next time is not there because now you're in your 30s. So I just think, I don't even think it's him like hiding from the family because he was on drugs. And honestly, the one time you finally do hear about him having an issue with substances, that was more so painkillers. After the Pepsi incident, a few physical pain type of issues as far as touring and doing all that dancing and everything. But you never heard of Michael doing like no cocaine and heroin or nothing like that. It seemed to be all painkillers and whatever. It's a lot though. Raymond Davis. Because she writes a lot of her songs, I would love to hear the inspirations behind some of her songs. Yeah, well, I know she said like a lot of her favorite writers were a lot of the women writers in that era. So like Carly Simon and Joni Mitchell. But I know she's really a huge fan of like Sly and the Family Stone and like Stevie Wonder. Um, who else? Tina. And it's interesting, a lot of her influences were the same people her brothers listened to as well. So, and then imagine your cousin being Stevie Wonder. Like, God, you just, you go to his house and he got all kind of stuff going on. It's just inspiration all around. Every time you turn around. Um, oh, that piece about David Bowie. Hey, Bibby said the moment David Bowie slid out from the main party and offered the kids some of whatever he was on. Um, you see, she was very poised with how she told that story and kind of just left it to the imagination because, see, she had some grace with even giving you the dirt. Like, she didn't want to tarnish that man's legacy. Melvin Brothers said "Off the Wall" was his first solo. No, it wasn't because you had like Forever Michael and some of the other albums that came out. But I think people paid attention, and I think because he was still in the group, and when they would tour, they would just tour and still do his solo tracks in addition to the Jackson Five. People kind of get mixed up and forget that Michael already had like a handful of albums already. Um, but I mean, a lot of people, in the same way that people think Control is Janet's first album, a lot of people kind of look at Off the Wall as his first album. So if you want to say Off the Wall is Michael's first I'm Here album, yeah, you can say that. But he had some projects. And mind you, like some of those solo projects did go like and sell platinum before, like in the 70s. So um thank you, Melvin brother. He has 4 top 10s off the wall. Yep. Jeremiah Border said, I'm not even gonna lie. When I saw them audition for Motown, man, little Michael Jackson had vocals and ate that song up. Let me tell you what also annoyed me. So y'all remember when I did that Michael and Beyonce video, and I was just, in regards to the conversation around Coachella and stuff, what kept irritating me was people kept trying to say Michael is not a good vocalist. And I'm like, that's because you measure his vocal ability based on everything you remember after history. And by then, that's after 30 years of touring. And mind you, he was an artist in the 70s when technology was not what it was yet. And when you had to really project because the microphones didn't even work the same way and everything like that. And so people bypass the vocals that Michael would have had on an album like Moving Violation, as far as with his brothers, or Triumph or Destiny and all of that. Like Michael, one, he has an unusually high range for a tenor. When you really dig into some of those songs, even on Off the Wall, you're still hearing it on songs like Get on the Floor. You're like, that's damn Michael. All right. But he had an unusually high voice. And I think because as he toured, he would kind of acknowledge some of the Jackson 5 songs. He'd do that medley really quick and just, change the arrangements. But you don't hear a lot of the songs like You Were Made Especially for Me or Looking Through the Window. He wasn't performing songs like that on the Dangerous tour. And so people kind of, they only hear the songs like Jam or, you know, what else? Scream, Blood on the Dance Floor, or Susie and all that. And so they just assume, oh, Michael couldn't sing. I'm like, y'all just be on here saying anything. Or even when people say, oh, Michael only had the moonwalk. I'm like, y'all, I'm trying to not fry a certain entertainer up, but y'all keep trying it with the Jacksons. I'm like, y'all put some respect on their names, please. All right. Anyway. Thank you, Text Mex Chief. What did you say on there? Say white people be tripping. All right, I'm gonna keep moving. Still Waters, that's a very good point. He says it's impossible to document 40 years in 4 hours. It is, because even 4 hours ain't enough. And like I said, there could be so many separate mini documentaries just on each album if she wanted to do that. You could have a whole documentary on just Control, because that was the only part that killed me. I was like, they didn't even. I like that they're highlighting the success, but I'm like, can you just show like a 10-second snippet of the singles just to remind people? Or listen, I ain't trying to be cocky. Can y'all just play like the first half of my So What Happened video where I talk about the stats? Just put that in there, please. Something. Yours truly said Paula didn't have the total package. She's Kelly Janet's B. Yeah, Paula wasn't really the best vocalist, but the reason I referenced Paula Abdul is because she had the same kind of machine behind her. And again, in this industry, you can make anybody be as big as they want to be with the right push and the right backing. And Paula did have that for a moment, because even when you go back to the Forever Your Girl era, like she had 3 chances before she really blew up. Like, Knocked Out didn't really blow up. The Way That You Love Me didn't really blow up. It was when she released Straight Up, and then finally she caught on. Other labels would have threw in the towel after The Way That You Love Me didn't do well, especially after they spent all that money and it's this really great choreographed video and it didn't do well. I mean, she re-released it after Straight Up and it was a bigger single, and even though I think the first video was better, but yeah, y'all be going after Kelly all the time. I like Kelly. That's okay though. Melvin Brother said Dixie Chicks. I think they didn't realize their fan base was country. I think they realized their fan base was country, but I think people underestimated how tribal politics in the United States is, because this is before the era of Trumpism, and this is before the era of when people I feel like the flaws, and we're not about to jump into politics, but I feel like the flaws in American politics right now is that people have become fans of their politicians that they support, to the point where it's almost cult-like. And so I think in that era, when you said something against whatever person in office, especially if they had a huge following or backing, people felt like it was betraying the country. And because we were just about to go into war, and that core demographic is already, you already know how most of them already operate and think in regards to anything. It's like, oh, you're siding with the terrorists. And so, yeah, they just caught hell. Because it was so funny. I'm like, everybody was like, yeah, you don't talk about the president. I'm like, as bad as Obama used to get dragged, ain't nobody had nothing to say then, or whatever. And now you see how times have changed. Now any president catches it. Any president is the punching bag. It doesn't matter which one's in power. Dom you said Janet never in my mind got blackballed. Her true fans stood by her side like me. I mean, that's true, but I think the issue, I always think of Janet's Rock With You tour, and I say that because I personally think that was one of her best concerts. Of all the Janet shows I've seen, that's one of my favorites, and it's because you could tell that she was hungry to really just give an audience everything. She had this set list of like 37 songs. She incorporated songs from the first 2 albums that she'd never really performed anywhere. She had this gigantic stage with the catwalk that extended out into the audience. It was just like she did a bit of everything. And mind you, she did that with no budget, because at that point, her and Def Jam or Island Def Jam were already done. There weren't a lot of sponsors for the tour. There was a lot of things she had to fund out of pocket. This was one of the reasons why there wasn't a 20YO tour, because they couldn't find sponsors that thought she could pull off an arena tour. And then she just happened to meet L.A. Reid, and he's like, yeah, well, actually do one more album and then we can, fund the tour. But yeah, with that show, such an amazing show, but so many people didn't see it. And I think something like that has to bother you as an artist when you put so much into a piece of work. And I think that tour had 17 dates that actually went all the way through. That has to be something that kind of tears you up on the inside. So yeah, your diehard fans are still there, but as an entertainer, you need your diehard fans, but you also need the general public in regards to buy-in if you want to continue to do the big tours and have the money invested in for the big videos. And even with producers, once you start having a string of albums that don't do as well, if you're not an artist that people already think is like top tier, it's hard to still even get those top tier producers. Think of all of the more seasoned veteran acts that may have, that haven't really had hits in the last 10, 15 years. When they come out with projects, they're not working with the who's who of the business unless they're like a Mariah Carey or a Janet or a Mary J. Some of these seasoned acts that still have pull, they can still pull in the big name producers and the budgets, and Dave Myers can shoot the video. But when you start getting to the Sherelles and the even In Vogue, or who else? Johnny Gill, like all of them, because their time is come and gone and they still make great music today. DJ Mustard is not going to be breaking his neck to work with Sherelle. And that's not a diss or anything. It's just highlighting where the industry is. So I think when you do have that decline, if you are not seen as an artist that can still move numbers, it's harder to keep building on what you've created because so many people jump ship. And I think that people try to do that with Janet, but I think because she had such a strong foundation as far as how big her career was, you could never really quite write her off, because even during the decline, all of her albums were still top 2 albums. Demita Joe went to number 2, 20YO went to number 2, would have gone to number 1 had Ludacris not dropped the price down of his album to $6, and then he beat her by 3,000 copies. And Discipline was number 1, Unbreakable was number 1. So there's still an interest that's there, but it's interesting. I said this was gonna be like a 30-minute live. We already about to hit an hour. But no, that was a rough time period when I got fired up at school so bad after the Super Bowl. I was ready to fight people. Like, I was so mad. Like, everybody just shut up. They were frying her up every day. Chris V said, "All for You" deserves more praise though. It does. I used to not be that crazy over that album at all. And it grew on me over the years. So like the songs like Truth and like Better Days and Feel So Right, like all those album gems are the ones I really like from that project. I didn't know so many people were interested in Janet tonight. Okay, we at 5:21. All right. Thank you, 2008 B Scott. She doesn't need to be Beyonce. She can be Janet. Like I said in that Michael and Beyonce video, y'all have to start looking at artists in a parallel. I think, or a spectrum. When you look at them through a parallel, that kind of chips away at anybody's artistry, because you just set them up to get fried up depending on who gets compared to who. I've always been able to appreciate artists in their respective lanes, and I like somebody like Beyonce. I enjoy. Especially in this modern era where they just let anybody be famous for anything. I appreciate that she comes out of an era where you still had to have talent. And so, she can sing, she can do a little bit of everything. And in the same token, y'all know I love me some Janet. Like, that's, for me, that's what I grew up on. That's still like, there's happy memories that come with a lot of her songs. And then again, my father was a huge Janet fan. That's how I pretty much got into her. Like, he used to go to her concerts and not take me because I was too young. Like, he went to the Tacoma Dome, both Tacoma Dome shows of the Rhythm Nation tour. He went to the Janet tour. He used to work at Milgard Windows and they had company tickets. He went to the Janet tour. Yeah, he loved him some Janet. So, wow. Dome Deal, you said Janet pulled me on stage in 1998 here in Charlotte and kissed me. I have photos. I was I don't think I was ever close to getting on the stage. She did pick the guy 6 seats over from me during the DC show of the Rock With You tour. But that was when I was like 20 years old. And when I was 20, I think I looked 12. So she wasn't gonna pick me no way, because she probably would have thought I was a kid and she was not about to catch a charge. But I don't know if I would have wanted to go on stage, because I don't think I want, and that DC show was sold out. I don't think I would want 15,000 people to see my reaction when Janet got me like strapped on a chair. And I don't think I'd want everybody to see my reaction. I get too embarrassed. Bernice Jackson said her true fans stood by her, but she did lose out on movies, and she was supposed to play Lena Horne. I was so mad I forgot to put that in my So It Happened. Like, Lena Horne's family was like, nope, get her out of there. And look, now Lena Horne ain't got a movie. Anyway, let's keep it moving. Lorenzo said, will the documentary be on Hulu? I think it's Hulu next day. I think it should be on tomorrow. All right, let's keep it moving. Sonia Bethay said, I love how you love Janet. I am like that with Whitney. I caught myself smiling at the memories. I feel so blessed to actually be alive during our heyday and the best, one of the best performers of all time. Here's the thing, like it's crazy. I think I became a bigger fan of Janet as she was on like that commercial decline when she got blacklisted. That's when I really started going hard. I always liked her, but all of my favorite entertainers are dead. Like all the ones that I grew up on that I was obsessed with, like Michael's gone, Whitney's gone, Prince is gone. MC Hammer's still here, but he don't be making music like that. And then even like with TLC, Left Eye's gone. And so like Janet is the last one I got. I mean, I still got others I really enjoy, like a Mary J. Blige or like Tony or like some of these other people that were out during that time. But like the ones that I used to run to the TV for, they're all gone. And so Whitney, that's a rough one too. I know I love some Whitney. And yeah, so while these people are still here, I'm gonna gas them up all the way until they make it to 90, God willing. Listen, Janet can do a tour at 805 years old in a wheelchair on oxygen. I'm gonna still be in there and telling y'all it was the greatest thing ever. They're gonna be rolling her in to do Rhythm Nation. They're gonna have a therapist lifting her arm to do the choreography. I'm gonna still be eating it up like it was the dopest thing ever. Because they can still put some pyrotechnics behind the wheelchair, so it'll still be lit. But yeah. So I feel like we definitely gotta celebrate people while they're here. Because so many of her peers are gone. It's a blessing she's still with us, especially a lot of people didn't make it. A lot of big names in the 80s aren't here anymore. Big names in the 90s aren't here anymore. We're even losing people that are current. Like I'm still in shock over DMX being gone. I'm like, what the hell? What? Man. Melanin Brother said real fans know she was singing live at her tours. That's the other thing. See, I wish they didn't overdub her concert tours. Like I suggest people go and watch the Velvet Rope tour, like the original aired version. There's so much that they overdubbed for the DVD because that whole Escapade medley sounds so different. And I don't know why they overdubbed it because she actually sounds pretty good. There's still some parts where she, of course, has some additional support, like a Rhythm Nation isn't really the song isn't really like live like that. But yeah, and then somebody just recently uploaded this. This is the stand in me. Somebody uploaded a private show she did in Brunei. I want to say it's for the same people that Whitney did the Brunei show for in like '96, and it's the Velvet Rope tour. And again, you can hear the differences in a lot of the songs, so you can tell like yeah, that mic used to be on occasion. Um, anyway, let's keep it scrolling. Somebody said, "Yep." Danny said, "These kids are in their 60s and 70s and still traumatized." And then Tawana right after said, "Baby boomer parents did things differently." It reminds me of like my mom and her sisters. There's four of them, and all four of them have such a totally different memory of my grandma. And of course, me and my cousins have just the most perfect memory of grandma because grandma is just, I have no bad memories of grandma. Grandma was just perfect to me. And so then when the aunts start talking about how crazy my grandma used to be, I'm like, she did what? I don't remember that. Like grandma was sewing me little, she used to sew and make me yarn tissue box covers and bookmarks. And me and her would watch Judge Mills Lane and Judge Judy and what's that? Forgive or Forget with Mother Love. And then when I got older, like when I used to go visit her after like in college, me and her would be watching South Park and Family Guy. Like, so I just have this whimsical experience of my grandmother. And then my mom and her sisters are like, man, your grandma, let me tell you about the time she stabbed the lady next door. I'm like, okay. She ain't stabbed nobody. I'm just exaggerating. But yeah, she did beat up the lady next door, though. She said there was a lady next door that used to do like the voodoo witch type stuff. And she told my grandma she was going to put a hex on her. So my grandma went to go beat her up. That was like in the 70s. Anyway. Okay, I keep getting a million messages. I'm gonna put this right here. Um, that's true, Jesse. Jesse said at least Joe was there for his kids, better than these deadbeats that leave their kids to raise themselves. They can't say Joe wasn't there. Darnell said Michael's problem was chasing Thriller. And again, I think it's just when you have a vision, you want to go for it, and it is what it is. I still think there were great things that came after Tour. Like I think the Bad Tour in itself, for him to be able to have such a massive tour as his first, solo embarkment is just yeah. So I loved it. The Bad Tour is my favorite tour out of the Michael tours. I love that tour, especially the Japanese legs. Okay, Tangle55 says this may be unpopular, but taking all the kid stuff out of it, I thought Michael handled that level of fame very well. I mean, as well he could be for being the most famous person in the world. I thought he did all right. You know, he did a lot of charity stuff. Like the fact that this man launched the Dangerous tour and all the proceeds went to charity. Like it wasn't even for him. That it went to the Heal the World Foundation. Like I don't know too many people who will put on a massive stadium tour and they don't keep a single penny. It all goes to charity and the kids in the hospital. So yeah. And like, oh, and then somebody was saying Crystal Martin was saying, yeah, Michael was in constant pain from the Pepsi accident. And in addition to that, like a lot of entertainers as they got older, had a lot of issues with pain. I'm sure Janet probably has that now. She said, like, doing the little if blade, she said that hurts her shoulder. So that's why if you've seen her more recent tour, she doesn't do them anymore. She does something else. She said it hurts over time. And, you know, Prince had the back issues from dancing in the hills and break dancing and stumping and jumping from the piano to the floor and doing all that. And Paula Abdul had the back issues. Like, you start all that wear and tear on the body and doing all that hard dancing for 2 hours every night, it starts to break you down over time. And it sucks because somebody like a Janet, people will go to her show when she's in her 50s and still want her to perform like it's 1993 and get mad. And what makes it even funnier, though, even what she's doing in her 50s, I think is still more entertaining than what we're seeing at these award shows. Janet can hang with the the best of them out of this current era. So yeah. Cat BX said a child needs to be a child. It should have been balanced. Everyone noticed that child actors start and suffer a lot. I think with that too, though, because the Jacksons would be what you call some of those first child stars. I mean, you had like Shirley Templeton from back in the day, but I don't think people realized one how a lot of the decisions that were made would affect them later down the line. I always say because we're looking at the past through a lens of 2022, it's easier for us to kind of see the flaws because we've learned from them. But I'm sure right now there are things in our generation that we will do wrong that we won't realize we're doing wrong until the generation from 2045 tells us. Kind of, it's kind of like when people always make fun of TLC or Tony Braxton for going broke. I always say y'all flame them, but had they not had those experiences, the conversations around publishing and royalties and understanding that when you write your songs, that's where the money comes in, and that album sales, especially now that we're in the streaming era, that's not where the money's coming in. And if you go on a tour and there's not a lot of sponsors and you have to fund it and pay for the band and everything else, it's easy to go bankrupt. And so I feel like there were lessons learned from TLC and Tony Braxton that a lot of entertainers jumped into. And Prince had already been telling everybody back then, own your masters, own everything. And people were laughing at him because they thought he was crazy. Like, how do you leave Warner Brothers during the peak of your career? Like, and then kind of go independent and then come out with all these albums that aren't really moving the numbers they move. But Prince was like, listen, I can do what I want though. So I'm happy. Enjoy the rest of you guys kind of being, the rest of you guys go ahead and enjoy being locked into these contracts. And so I guess it's a generational thing. There's lessons learned. My parents weren't perfect. They did the best they could. Um, and so I give them some grace. There's some things I've been having some beef with from childhood. If you listen to my podcast, my family sounds chaotic. But yeah, I do wish they kind of would have had a bit more of a childhood because maybe things would have been better off for maybe Michael might still be here. I don't know. But you know, it is what it is. Marnie Davis said, "What happened with the David Bowie?" I missed that part. Oh, they were just saying they were having a party and David Bowie was there and he kind of escaped a bit to get into a room. He had some kind of drugs that he offered Michael and they turned it down. All right. Um. Oh, did I get to the bottom of my chat yet? I don't even know. This thing is not. All right, come on, get there. There we go. I didn't even know how far along we were in on this. Dang, we got a whole lot. Y'all got a lot on here. Okay, we having some good conversation. All right. I'm gonna have to skip some a little bit because I'll never make it to the bottom. Um, I like that Terravio. He says Janet was sidelined. Maybe that's the better term. I like that as well because even with all of the shenanigans that went behind the scenes in regards to what they tried to do to her after 2004. Look, you see, she's like everybody and their mama was watching her documentary tonight, so good for her. Um, Taj Willis said, "I went to the Rock with You tour. I saw it. I got lucky. I got to see it twice. I saw it in DC and then I saw it at Madison Square Garden. And I personally think the DC show was better than Madison Square Garden. It was a funner crowd. New York is kind of interesting because it's like, and you're in New York with 8 million people. They've seen everything. So sometimes it's hard to impress them. They were still a lit crowd, but that Madison Square Garden show, it was a rescheduled show because it had been postponed. So I think it was like 80% full when I went. I think Wikipedia got the numbers all wrong. They said it was sold out. It was not. No disrespect. But yeah, the people that were there, it was a good time, but it was a weird thing. And like New York, they took their time coming. Like the show had started, and there were still so many empty seats. I'm like, New York, what y'all doing? And I mean, by the time the show ended, a lot of the seats were filled. But I think that New York show was like 80 something percent full. It's like that's it. I thought y'all was about to, show up. But again, I think it was postponed and rescheduled like 3 or 4 days later. So a lot of people just couldn't make that initial rescheduled date. But no, that DC show was a lot of fun. Um, gonna keep it moving. Oh, yo, Lala Huxtable, I remember that. Remember she had set up a voicemail and then she got back to her fans that picked out songs she should do. I believe we had help in putting that together. That's about the Rock with You tour. Like, see, that's why I said she was hungry during that era. I was on that phone line talking to that. I think I named a million songs she needed to do. I was like, whatever. What else happened during that? Yeah, there was a phone line you could dial in and you could put in a request. And this is when I still used to post on like the music forums and everything. And I remember her choreographer Gil used to be on I don't remember. I think it was called Planet Janet. I don't remember what it's called. But I got so mad one time because I said I always thought it would be cool if Janet Jackson would do a music video where she revisits her old sets and has like the same costumes. Like, she does the all right video and has on the pinstripe suit and everything. And even if she can find some of the old dancers or whatever and like revisit it, and then maybe she jumps to the 24 play video. And I remember he made some kind of weird emoji face, like, okay, just for other artists to end up to do that like years down the line. I'm like, see, that my idea was good. It could have been lit. Cause whatever. Because I remember Mary J had that one commercial she had where she kind of revisits her old eras and they kind of dress her up like the old stuff. I was like, so clearly I wasn't too far off the mark. Whatever. Thank you, Mel Smith. Um, wow, that's different. Byron Alexander, I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna mix that, see what that sounds like. He says, China Love, the song on the All For You album, is great, but if you speed it up just a bit, it becomes an even better song you can dance to. All right, I'm gonna mix that tomorrow and see what that sounds like. Y'all know I love a good up tempo. Virgo Stan said, if you had to A&R Janet's next album, what artistic direction would you advise her to take? Ooh. Um, I don't know. It's a good question. I do want at least one more really big dance video going full out choreography type stuff. Um, I definitely make sure she records a song that's extremely popular internationally, just because Europe and all of them have kind of, I'm not gonna say they jumped ship, but because of just the way things were set up, she's never really been able to regain the footing she once had in that region. There's people that still support her, obviously, but I definitely push for that. I mean, she's kind of done everything, so it's almost hard to figure out where to go with her. But it would definitely be an R&B pop influenced album. Probably something a bit more upbeat. I love Unbreakable. It's one of my favorite albums of hers. But I think that's an album for her fans. And so I would love for her to kind of return to the big stadium escapade-ish type songs. Um, it's a good question. Y'all gonna fight me, but I kind of want Janet to retire and just be happy, honestly. I'll be grateful for any other project she comes out with, but I just feel like she's already done enough. Live your life. Just because the industry has killed so many people, I don't want her to end up in a space where she burns herself out. But I think she's kind of in a space where now she's made a good balance where she just gets to live. And I only say that because now she has a child, and I see so many stories of like children of celebrities who they yearn for their parents but their parents are always on tour or doing whatever else they have. I'd love for Janet to get back into acting or even more so mentoring other acts that are coming up, because at this point she's cemented and sealed her legacy. If she never came out with another album, I'd be perfectly fine. I know she's working on some stuff, but that's a good question. Now, if I was A&Ring some of those previous projects, um, hmm, I'll go to 20YO. That's the one that I didn't like how they did the rollout. If it were 20YO, Do It To Me would have been a single. Um, I would have replaced Kai with Little Kim on So Excited and actually let Little Kim get an actual verse. Um, Call on Me with Nelly would have not have been the first single, but I understand why it was put out there. It was a way to kind of ensure that she could get on the radio because at that time Nelly still had some pull. But I Call on Me is not a favorite of mine. It's a nice song, but I think it's very 2006. When I first heard it, it sounded like, okay, this kind of sounds like everything that's already out. Um, and that's cool, but it's no. Enjoy would have been a single. I would have pushed that on Urban AC. If I were looking at Discipline, Feedback, of course, was fine. I could stay. Actually, Discipline actually had an okay rollout. They just started fighting, and so they pulled the plug. One rumor I read, and I wonder how true this is, because then Janet did an interview one time, and she kind of talks about a piece of it, but and it's not even that rumor, but just what she says in the interview kind of confirms what the rumor was saying. So apparently, like Janet and L.A. Reid had already fell out the week the album had come out in regards to what they were going to do with the next single between Love and Rock With You. And by then, they had already said, well, to hell with it. And so Janet still did all the dates that were already signed on. But apparently, like Janet and her dancers just all went out overnight and just had them a ball and didn't get any sleep. And then that next morning was Good Morning America. And that's when she did. I think that's the same day she also did TRL. And like, even though those are some dope performances, she kind of just seemed a little tired to me that day, minus Rock With You. Um, and I'm like, I wonder if that was like on purpose. Like she said, well, the hell with y'all. We just gonna go out and drink and party and have us a good time. We'll get to it when we get to it. But yeah, it seemed like there was a lot going on then. Or even like her pulling out of SNL, like, and she was sick. Apparently she wasn't sick. It was just F you and F this label. And remember they replaced her with Mariah for that performance. Those were some times there. Michaelology 1958 said, yeah, can someone please summarize the first episode of this doc? I missed it. First episode, first third of it is about how the Jackson 5 becomes famous and how it correlates Janet as a child star into the family variety show and the Vegas show. And then they kind of shift a little bit into the acting. And then the last portion would be Control and Rhythm Nation. That's the documentary so far. Oh, and the marriages. All right. Rob MM. I want to hear about Bobby Brown and Tupac from Janet. The thing with Bobby and Janet, it's hard for me to take some of Bobby's bit serious because Bobby said he had sex with a ghost. That's where he lost me. I said, what happened? What? Okay, Bobby. Yeah. I probably still will watch his documentary. I'm like, how many documentaries is they gonna keep giving Bobby? But Bobby's one of my favorites too from back in the day. So yeah. Marie said, wait, why was Janet blacklisted? Oh, listen, I don't feel like re-explaining it, but I have a great video called So What Happened, Janet Jackson, all for you to Demita Joe. Go ahead and watch it. It'll give you all the scoop. Let me promote myself really quick. But no, it's in response to the Super Bowl. That's what brought all the smoke. Oh, Tangle 55 said, will you do a So What Happened on Whitney Houston, Calvin, or even MC Hammer? I'd love to hear your take. I think I said this on the last live. The next one's Tony. I'd like to do a Whitney one. If I did Whitney, though, I think it would be. So what I would like to do in the So What Happened series is really like cover multiple eras, but the videos would be too long. Because with Whitney, I'd love to go from My Love Is Your Love all the way to I Look to You. Because I like for them to end on a happy note, kind of almost. Um, mm, Yeah, because even with Tony, I'm doing the Heat to More Than a Woman, but I'm kind of leaning towards going from the Heat to Libra. But then Libra still had some stuff that happened, so I'm like, I don't want it to just be all gloom and doom all the way down. But I don't know, we'll see. Um, Mac reviews. Will Janet ever go on another tour, or is she done because of her child? I mean, she was supposed to go on tour before COVID came and ruined everything. You know, it was going to be the Black Diamond World Tour. I already was. Did I get tickets? Were tickets on sale? Yeah, I think I bought tickets. I think my show was supposed to be in July of 2020, if I'm correct. Yeah, it was supposed to be July 28th, I think. I had my tickets. It's okay. But it gives her more time to go behind the, drawing board and really get it together. Plus, I think she toured a whole lot between 2017 and 2019 anyway. So I'm sure that tour, as far as what they were planning, was going to be a rehash of what was already done. So this gives her plenty of time to go to the drawing board. Little Issa's like 5 now, so she can really get into the rehearsals because she said, by the time she got the Metamorphosis, she was cutting back how much time she was spending at rehearsal because she wanted to spend time with Issa. So now that Issa's a little bit older and Issa can kind of hang out at the practice and, they give him his little xylophone or whatever he does on the side, Janet can do what she does. But yeah. Mel Smith said Madonna's still here. Yeah, Madonna's not going nowhere. She'll be all right. She'll be here for a while. Madonna's one. I think Madonna's somebody that's always been hungry. She's never gonna. Madonna will be 90 and still trying to push the envelope, and I ain't mad at her for doing it. You do you, Madonna. She's not my go-to entertainer, but I don't want to take away from what she's been able to do because she's done a lot, even if it's not something I necessarily run behind from all angles. But she has her moments. I like. Jerry said, "Did Whitney sell more albums than Janet?" Yeah, she sold a lot more than Janet. Because, and again, I think I don't know if I talked about this before. Um, did I? I don't know if I talked about it, but I know like because Whitney is the voice one, but balladeers were extremely popular in the 80s and the 90s. And so when you look at a lot of the best-selling singles and albums, they tend to be from entertainers that had these really, really amazing voices and these ballads that just carried weight. And for Janet to have been a visual entertainer and move the numbers that she did kind of just goes to show like she really was able to find her footing and find her lane. Cause man, I mean, you got to think when Janet came out, I mean, Whitney was already out. It was kind of a new artist. But then in the R&B world, you had all of these amazing vocalists. There weren't a lot of vocalists that were coming out in the 80s that had a enough to get by kind of voice. And that's not a dig at Janet, but Janet's not a powerhouse singer. She's able to utilize her tone to really, I always say Janet's able to use her voice to blend into the music, like because she's so good at the stacking and you can hear her ear. Even when they showed her recording Rhythm Nation, people probably thought that she was singing what they thought the melody was going to be, and really she was just singing one of the stacks. You can hear it's in a lower key, and you see how she kind of jumps in different keys, but you can almost recognize what part of the song it is. I'm sure some people thought that was her recording what was initially the hook or what was the lead portion of the hook, but it's just one of the stacks in there and one of the harmonies. And so when you look at all of those kind of people who were out at the time, like Anita Baker had just kind of blown up. You had Melissa Morgan, who was a thing. You had, I'm skipping so many people, Shirley Murdoch. I think by then she wasn't working with Zapp and Roger anymore. Pretty much Phyllis Hyman was still with us. Pretty much every R&B woman was a powerhouse, minus Janet. And Janet was able to still be neck and neck with a lot of people, and then even surpass a lot of them. Oh, I skipped skipping so many people, man. Melva Moore. God, there's so many of them that just like sang down. I'm skipping so many people right now, but yeah, for her to be able to come out and do what she did, and again, like those ballads and all that are really popular overseas, internationally. They really can do some things, but yeah, I forgot what Whitney's official number was. And now it's hard to kind of tell because now when they talk about album sales, they mix everything together. There was a time where when they would announce album sales, they only specifically counted the actual album. Singles were never a part of that conversation. That's why if you watch like when Janet re-released All For You with the DVD, and there's that DVD, and it says, "Oh, she sold 55 million records." Somebody was like, "How the heck did she go from 55 million to 180 million records?" And the albums that came after All For You didn't move that many numbers. I was like, "Oh, that's because they finally started counting what she did with her single sales, and then you also incorporate what happened with streams." So back then, you only counted the actual albums, and the singles and whatever it was just whatever it was. And then they kind of started consolidating that conversation. I want to say Mariah kind of led that, as far as the conversation of putting emphasis on just the idea of records, meaning everything that's released with your name on it, and looking at it as an umbrella um, statement, as opposed to being distinctive between albums, singles slash records, or whatever else was out there. Anyway, but yeah, Whitney's that Bodyguard alone did some numbers, man. And even her debut, I think, was like 20 million plus copies. Um, and you know who gets looked over in regards to album sales with those first two? Tony. Tony like moved some number. When you look at what Tony Braxton and Secrets, those two albums sold, like Tony was killing it. All right. Anyway, yeah, I think Whitney now has 4 diamond certifications. I believe it's the debut album, Whitney Houston, the follow-up album, Whitney, The Bodyguard is at like 30 million, but that's still, I think they still just have it written as diamond. And I know the single I'll Always Love You was just certified diamond. So yeah, Whitney be killing it. Mel Smith said Whitney was accused of going too pop and not being urban. Janet never got that from the black community. Yeah, but I do think there is a weird energy that sometimes comes with Janet from a lot of people in the community where, and I don't know how to word it. It's easy for people to try to get in a jab with her on occasion all the time. You hear it all the time. But anyway, I think I've always said Whitney and Janet, what worked for them is they both had the best of both worlds in regards to pop and R&B. I just think when Whitney came out, it was hard for people to see her as a pop icon because we were so used to black faces being specifically R&B. And even today, it's hard to see an artist marketed as a pop star. So somebody like a Samantha Moomba comes to mind. I saw her as a black artist that was marketed as pop, but a lot of times they put you right in the R&B box right away if you're a black entertainer. I think Rihanna was able to kind of break out of that and be seen more so as pop. But I think at the time, music was already kind of shifting when both Janet and Whitney came out. And when you see the contrast into their sound, so Whitney did have a more whimsical pop approach with some of those early singles. So like a How Will I Know, even though that was initially for Janet, but like a How Will I Know, or So Emotional, which is now like one of my favorite songs after I watched her do it live during the what tour was that? I don't know what tour that is. I think it's like a clip from 91, but it from Spain when he was tearing that song up. But when you hear how like bright those are compared to those early Control songs, like Janet's singles in those mid to late 80s had some grit, just a nasty to it. And so I think because Janet was also making a statement with something like Control, and I want to be the one to control. And then you see like what have you done for me lately? She got all the attitude, and you see nasty. Janet just seemed like, okay, she's about it. And I think Whitney got some unfair treatment around that time. And that's why I was kind of side-eyeing when Al Sharpton was in the Janet doc. I was like, you don't need to be in this because you'd be coming after too many people the wrong way. Because remember, he definitely had that Whitey Houston campaign. I did not like that. Out of pocket, Al Sharpton. But no, I think Whitney eventually was, once she was able to be herself, I think that kind of went away. They were trying to put her in a specific bubble as far as how to market her and how to present her. And once they just let the jersey come out, you never really heard that anymore. And I don't know. Interesting. Oh, thank you, Crystal Martin. MJ also donated all of his earnings from the Victory Tour to charity too, and that was in response to the backlash they had because remember they had partnered with Don King, and so he's the one who decided, well, there's going to be a lottery for the tickets because the tickets were already going to be really in demand, and so the tickets were already high, and then they were starting to get backlash, and Michael Jackson already didn't want to work with no dang Don King to begin with, so they went ahead and did the damage control and started releasing tickets that were more affordable. And the other part was with the tickets, you didn't get a refund. There was like an application fee that you had to pay. You didn't, that was non-refundable. Long story short, Michael was like, I'm not with the nonsense. And so he said, all the pieces that, I make, I'm going to donate to charity because y'all not about to have me as a part of this nonsense. And he was already making so much from Thriller. He didn't need the money anyway. Calvin, what's your second favorite Janet tour? If I go by tours that I've been able to see, because sadly I was late to the party as far as tours. So the only tours I've seen in person are Rock With You, State of the World, both legs, um, and the Metamorphosis show. I had tickets to the #1 show, but at the time I was in Washington State. And when I bought the Washington State tickets, I was moving back to DC, and she had already did the DC show. So I had to give my tickets to one of my friends instead. Um, but out of the ones I've seen, my favorite show, I think Rock With You was my favorite show, and a lot of that has to do with the fact that that was the first time I saw her, so I was already in awe. But State of the World is a very, 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 very close second because I love that show. As far as like all the shows together, Velvet Rope is always my #1. It's never budging. It's not going anywhere else. To me, that's the standard of entertainment, and that's how people should put on a show. #2, I'm convinced that if the Janet tour is ever professionally released, that'll probably be my #2. Because the footage that I keep seeing from like the fan footage, just it looks amazing. Like she was doing, I don't even know how she had the energy to do what she was doing. So, plus I like the band arrangements on that tour as well. Jalil Mason said, Paula said she was in a plane crash. Okay, that's another video and a half because there are whole people dedicated to like debunking the fact that she was in a plane crash. I'm not trying to be the messy person here, but yeah, NTSB, there's no records of that plane crash. But Paula still tells the story, and I'm not going to take it away from her. But yeah, they've been interesting. I'm going to leave that alone. But yeah, I hope she gets everything she wants for Christmas. All right. What are my views on Madonna nowadays? Artistically, and again, this is not a diss, I haven't paid attention to Madonna since Rebel Heart. I did think that was a very nice album, and it probably should have been more successful because I thought Ghost Town was a really great single. I even think the tour was cool. I was not a fan of whatever that last album was with I forgot what it's called. I remember seeing the promos when she was doing the award show, and they're like, "Oh, she spent $5 million on this performance." So I was ready to be moved, and then when I watched it, it was cha cha cha, cha cha cha. I was like, "What is this?" But no, again, Madonna's not my go-to, but I acknowledge the fact that she at least brings something different every time. I'll give her that. And she has some projects I like. If I were to really dig into her catalog, my favorite stuff of hers is the early 80s stuff, that those kind of like get into the groove, lucky, borderline kind of songs. And then I like the Bedtime Stories album. That was really nice. I love the Love Tried to Welcome Me song, plus the singles from that album. So like Secret and Human Nature, even though I was side-eyeing the video with the cornrows, and Take a Bow. Sticky, not Sticky and Sweet, Hard Candy was a nice album. I like the Sticky and Sweet tour. Madonna, I don't follow her like that though. She's cool for what she is. But I mean, she connects to other people, but sometimes her fans get on my nerves too. They be trying to pass her off like she's the second coming of Jesus. And I'm like, listen, I always say this. If Janet Jackson were to be a white woman, she would have been the biggest entertainer in the world. If the tables were turned and Madonna was a black woman, I don't think we would have known who she was. And that's how I feel, honestly. Privilege got her into a lot of doors. Please don't take that as a jab, but that's just how I see it. But I still rock with Madonna sometimes. You ever heard Shaka's unreleased LP, Dare You to Love Me from 1995? I have not, but y'all know I love some Shaka Khan, so that's definitely in the plans. I love her. What is that album? What is it? The Woman I Am? That's the one with You Can Make the Story Right. And what else is on that one? Lifetime. Love You for a Lifetime is on there. What else is on there? What is that? Wanna something? There's a whole bunch on there. Give Me All. That's the name of the song. I love that one. So what's up? I've been binging your podcast. Thank you. I've been trying to put some life back into it. Sometimes I run out of stories to tell, so I take long breaks because I have to go back and relive what was happening. It's hard to do a podcast that's only storytelling because you only have so many stories to tell. So sometimes you have to find things that took place back then and try to deliver the story in a way that's at least entertaining, which can be challenging, but yeah, it's fun. I like the podcast because I think it shows a lighter side of me. I think I scare some people away when we start talking politics and race. I be having people shook sometimes, and so I like the podcast because it reminds people I'm still a human with feelings, but we can be passionate about the ills of the world. So there's not a nice way to give a hard truth sometimes. All right. Somebody said that's why they booed Whitney, but they booed Janet too before. And I remember, I think it was I don't know if it was the Soul Train Awards, the NAACP Awards, or another one, but she got booed because she wasn't at the award show, but it was because she was on tour. But they didn't really announce that, and so when she won the award, and they were like, "Oh, Janet couldn't be here," they started booing. But I don't. They should have just said, "Hey, she's on tour." So yeah, I mean, things happen. But yeah, the booing of Whitney at that 89, and they actually did it twice. She got booed at the 88 one too. She wasn't there that day, but they were just nominating the category and they just showed her name and she got booed. That's rooted in something a little different, but I'm just glad people were able to appreciate her once they realized, like, you know, Whitney was that one. But yeah, and some of that's on Clive. That's just how they pushed her out there. But I still think the singles were good. I was never crazy over Whitney's albums cohesively until I'm Your Baby Tonight. Um, that's when I think she started having albums that had a really good theme. You can tell that the first two albums, as great as they are and as great as the singles are, you can tell like there was a purpose behind them in regards to ensuring that she'd have some massive commercial success. That's kind of what was a thing there. And I think by the time you get to like I'm Your Baby Tonight or My Love Is Your Love, or even just Whitney's actually a really good album. It gets slept on, but it's a really nice album. Um, the albums come a bit more, I don't want to say polished, but she's kind of more solidified in her sound. I love me some Whitney though. Somebody said MJ was the first Super Bowl halftime show. PepsiCo is the first black sponsored artist, first black act on MTV, first and only artist who's a philanthropist that made the Guinness Book of World Records. It's funny too. I was just looking at the previous Super Bowl before Michael with New Kids on the Block. I was like, this is not good. No disrespect. It was like a Disney themed halftime show. Some of them halftime shows used to be kind of terrible. Y'all are gonna fight me, but I didn't like the Motown one from '98 either. I mean, at least Boys to Men was on that. Or maybe that was '97. At least Boys to Men kind of closed it out. But they had like the Temptations on there, but it was like all of the replacements of the replacements of the replacement of the replacement Temptations plus Otis. I was like, oh, y'all tried this. Yeah, I was not crazy over that one. But yeah, oh well. Somebody said, right. Oh, well, he quit the tour live on stage. What did I miss? I don't even know what that's about, but that sounds good, whatever it is. I'm gonna come back to it if I can find it. Um, I will be glad when this little spot right here fades. I can't stand seeing it in the camera. I had like an ingrown hair like 2 months ago, and that spot is still there. Dang it. Ugh. But hey, we come a long way. Y'all remember, y'all start watching some of them videos from like 2013 and 14. I am checkered up. It's been a minute to get my face to get to where it is. Um, Joni Mitchell said she's removing her music from Spotify. Thoughts on this by artists? I mean, Spotify. Oh, this is about the Joe Rogan stuff. I mean, I have no expectations with most corporations. They're going to do whatever brings them money. Apparently, Joe Rogan has his little racist podcast that's making a lot of money, so they're going to keep it on there exclusively, I'm sure. Um, yeah, it sucks. Spotify is my go-to platform too, but interesting. We'll see how this all unfolds because I know Neil Young kind of started it as far as, hey, either get that crazy idiot off here or take my music off. And Spotify said, okay, we'll take them off. I'm like, damn, y'all didn't even want to meet in a room or nothing. He said, we'll just take them off. Like, dang. But we'll see where that goes. I mean, hell, if enough artists say let's all pull out, we'll see where it goes. I saw that Spotify's stock value dropped by like $4 billion in one day, I think. So we'll see. But hell, look, Spotify's how y'all listen to my stuff. Wait a minute. Y'all just listen to me on Tidal then. Tawana Martin said it ain't a secret. Paula can't sing. I mean, there's a lot of people that can't sing, but they can still. I'm not gonna name drop. I'm gonna leave it alone. I was about to go and say somebody, but they already got enough going on. All right, let me keep it moving. Thank you, yours truly. We will not make this a Madonna segment. She'll be all right. All right. Oh, I finally made it to the bottom. All right, finally. Okay. But anyway, so what I'm looking forward to in the second part, I really hope they have a lot more tour footage that we haven't seen before. I hope they show a lot of the State of the World tour. There was a lot of really cool things that happened during that tour, especially I'm sure it will be in there, but when she reunited with all of her dancers, like every dancer from all the tours. The only one I think that wasn't there was Shawnette Hurd and like one or two other dancers, but literally almost all of them were there, which was kind of cool. And they did Rhythm Nation at the Hollywood Bowl show. I was like, that's really cool. I would have loved to be in the audience for that one. That's really dope. I always wish Tina and Shawnette and like Tish Oliver and all of them could have stayed a little longer. By the way, Tish Oliver, I think, is my favorite Janet dancer of all time. Like that's my favorite dancer she's ever had. But she only danced on the Janet tour. But Tish just had this street appeal and the way that she performed her dance moves. I think, and from what I read, Janet actually paid for Tish's medical school. I don't know how true that is. I think it is true, but Tish is a doctor now, and I think her medical school Janet paid for. I can't remember if that's true or not, but I've seen that floating around. But no, I love some Tish Oliver. I always enjoyed her. Baby Gaga 108 said Joe Rogan is not racist if he is. Show it to me. I don't follow him enough to even know. I've never heard his show. I just saw what people were reporting. Listen, I'll be honest. I live in a very black world, and there's a lot of stuff I don't follow or pay attention to. So some of these like conservative white men that have platforms, I don't pay attention to them. Sorry, I live in a very black world. I do that for my own peace. Michaelology 1958 said almost everyone got booed at least once in their career. Almost everyone. Yeah, everybody gets booed at some point. It can be the moment where the celebrity has to get to some premiere or something and they do the red carpet, but they don't have time because they need to be in a certain space. And so because they couldn't talk to the press, they get booed. Or, the artist has somewhere to be and they don't have time to sign autographs, so they get booed. Or, if you're on a festival and maybe you're an artist that doesn't quite fit the mold of the other acts, and then you get on the stage and you get booed because they're waiting for some bigger artists to get there. It comes with the territory. Hell, I've been booed, not for my music, but I definitely got booed at a dance show before. The first time I ever got booed was at Howard. And mind you, we weren't even bad. It was just it was like a dance competition, and we eliminated a really, 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 really popular team unexpectedly. So they just started booing the mess out of us. I'm like, damn. And then again, like the next year, the music was messed up and the audience couldn't hear our music, but we could on the stage. So they just booed us for 3 minutes and we were dancing so hard. They just boo, boo. I'm like, damn, man, my feelings used to be hurt. And then in comedy, I've never been booed in comedy, but I did have one show that went weird where this is when I was really first starting out and I was still learning to read my audience. And so I had this wonderful set that would have been great for people who come from my background. However, the whole show, because they did not tell me this, and this was at Tacoma Underground Comedy Club, the whole venue was like biker gang, lesbian women with the leather vest and the red buzz cut. That was the crowd. And then I'm like, okay, my set. I'm gonna still do it because I already done rehearsed it. We just gonna see how it goes. And so I didn't get booed, but it was just dead silence. I would have rather they just booed. It would have felt so much better. Like there's nothing worse than doing a show and it's just like I wasn't even getting courtesy smiles. And there's one guy. I just remember one guy. I'm like, dang. And then the one time I was like, all right, y'all, I'm gonna get off the stage because y'all killing me softly. And then all of them, I was like, what? All right, well, at least I got a laugh. Thank you. Good night. I was so mad that day, but whatever. Y'all still on Madonna? Oh, I thought we was done with her. I ain't think about her like that. Um, Luther was booed at the Apollo. A whole lot of folks. Luther, Lauren, Neo. Who we're missing? There's a few folks. That's what the labels need to start doing. Bring Showtime at the Apollo back. The rule should be that you go on Showtime at the Apollo, you got to make it through amateur night. And if you can't, you don't get signed. And you don't get pushed until you can win over the crowd. We'll even give you multiple tries to go. Maybe you got booed this Friday, go back next Friday. You're gonna keep going until you win them over. Then that's how we'll know you're ready for the business. All right, can we speak on Janet, please? We spending a whole lot of time on everything else. Rihanna, the first black female pop star? No, she's not. I wouldn't say that. There's other women that would have been that, but I think in this era she's one that they've marketed as one. I wouldn't put her as that. No. I just think she's in a space where she can kind of do whatever she wants and she's not only put into the R&B category. Thank you, Dion. Oh, maybe. Oh, I think y'all got that in the wrong context. Okay. Let's see. Yeah, okay, that makes more sense. Yeah, okay. I see what you're saying. Yeah. Because they said, what about Dion, Diana, Donna Summer, Tina? Yeah, Jen, all of them. Beyonce, who paved the way for Rihanna. Like, I'm not worried about Rihanna like that. But no, I think if that's in response to my comments about like a Samantha Muma being like pushed as a pop star, I think I was saying like these artists were the way that the machine that was behind them and how they were pushed, they were automatically put in the same lane with their pop peers, and that's how they were pushed and marketed at that time. I said I used Samantha Mumba because that's how I saw her introduction, and I think with Rihanna, I mean, they had her pushed as like the dance hall girl from next door, and then eventually she shifted over into pop. But yeah, if we're talking mega pop stars at that time, Dion is definitely our first or one of our first major pop stars from that era. Um, yeah, because I think she was number 2 behind Aretha as far as Billboard entries before we got into the digital era. Um, and then yeah, all of those songs like what else? Never Loved This Way Again and Alfie and all that. Yeah, Dion used to clean house back in the day. Diana Ross, of course, but Diana, even though she was a pop star, she's still seen as an entertainer that was rooted in like R&B and soul, in my opinion. She may have not. She had a pop voice, but she still made very black music, in my opinion. But her voice was pop, and I think that's the reason why they put her over a lot of the songs as opposed to Florence and Mary. Tina Turner, I wouldn't even consider Tina a pop star, in my opinion. Like she has the Icon Tina stuff, but I think a lot of her solo stuff is straight up rock. You can call it pop, but I think because she was already rooted in a handful of sounds, people don't look at her when they think of pop. Tina's not the first person that comes to mind. Maybe pop in the realm of the music business and the success and the impact, but the specific sounds of her music. So a song like "Better Be Good to Me," in my opinion, is not a pop song. Would consider that rock. Or "Private Dancer," the song to me is almost R&B, especially by the time she jumps an octave towards the end. Or "I Can't Stand the Rain," or what else is in her catalog? Um, or her cover of "Help," which is kind of, even though that's an actual pop song, it comes off very R&B soul to me. Um, that's just me and my thoughts. Um, how do you feel about Mariah? I like Mariah. She's cool. And that's not a diss. Don't y'all take that the wrong way because somebody's gonna think I'm being shady. I like Mariah. She's all right with me. Um, I did like Caution a lot. The Distance, I wish they would have pushed. That was a really great song. I need to put out my next R&B is Dead episode because half of it specifically talks about pop music in the realm of how people, I don't know, R&B and pop have this weird relationship structurally, and so there's some weird conversations around it. So I definitely have been meaning to put it out, but I don't. The 2 versions I recorded I didn't like, so I'm like, I'm gonna go back and do it again. All right. Yeah, Lachey. Well, what else we gonna talk about? Well, we done covered most. I didn't said everything I could say. No, I was kidding. Um, Renee Elizondo. I wonder if she's gonna talk about the divorce and because there was a big settlement paid out. Um, I That would be interesting. I wonder like what the relationship is like. There probably isn't one, um, but mm. Oh, I can't wait for that too. He says I completely excited to see Michael and Janet writing screaming that hotel scene. But my only question is who the hell wait, hold on. Who thing always moving. Who the hell is recording all the scenes? I mean, Janet just got a whole I don't I don't know who's the person with the camera, but yeah, that's really cool. It was kind of cool to see that. I liked seeing Janet and Michael in that element because it to me it makes they seem the most normal when they're like in their comfort zone and you could kind of see the brother sister dynamic. So while Michael's giving the lyrics and Janet's typing, I thought that was really cool. That was really cool. All right, we're gonna wrap soon, y'all. This was supposed to be a 30-minute live. We've been on here for an hour and 40 minutes. McGill Cervantes says Donna Summer doesn't get the credit she deserves. Or yeah, I rock with Donna. Um, I think that's because when most people think of Donna Summer, they automatically think of just disco. They forget that she still had a nice run in the 80s of dance hits. The This Time It's For Real. My favorite was Dinner with Gershwin. I love that song. But yeah, she still had a nice run going into the 80s. Said if Michael was alive, what would he say in the documentary? I don't even think Michael would have been in the documentary. Michael don't want to be bothered. Like Michael said, leave me alone. I'm at home. Um, But if he were in it, what would he say? I feel like he'd put some respect on her name. After all, if he were alive to witness some of the nonsense that she had to deal with in later times, I'm sure he'd definitely come to her defense about a lot of things or remind people that, she's had a massive career because of what she was able to do. I always wonder, like, if Janet's last name was like Brown or something, how would we look at her? Because imagine, you have this massive career, but your brother is the biggest entertainer in the world. Like, imagine if Janet Jackson was Janet Williams and still did everything she did. Where would she go in regards to the conversations that we have around the musical greats? You know what I mean? I think I said that in my Michael Beyonce video, but I think because her brother is Michael, sometimes people who don't even follow or pay attention to what it is she's done automatically sometimes dismiss her because they just assume she's in the brother's shadow and sometimes don't want to give her credit as an artist. All right. Jerry Jaguar said, guys, one of Janet's backup singers said that Renee was an ass to him. Yeah, that was some good videos. I still want to know what happened with Patrice Rushen. That would have been kind of dope. But it seems like she still scored the tour, and I'm sure she was still compensated for everything. Because I remember, you know how they have the Music Choice Network. Every time I would watch like a Patrice Rush, or if they played a Patrice Rushen song like "Remind Me" or "Dream" or something like that, they'd always say, Patrice Rushen worked with Janet Jackson on like the Rhythm Nation and Janet tour. And I used to be like, I don't remember seeing her on there, but I was like, okay, so she did some of the scoring and arrangements and the sheet music behind the scenes. Cool, but I still want to know why they got rid of her. I feel like Renee did it. I'm gonna ask Renee. Um. Anyway. Janet and Michael's kids don't have any kind of relationship after Granny get. I'm not even jumping into that. Nope. Mm-mm. What a time. That's when Janet disappeared after that. She kind of went back into her own world. She said, the hell with y'all. I haven't spent all this time rebuilding my image and y'all want to stir this up and make it something. F that. I'm out. Don't let them, please. Twitter will understand that. Um, Charles Turner, could you have seen Janet in the Dorothy Dandridge film? And if she was to act in another film, what role do you think she could play? Um, I actually really like that Halle Berry got the role, even though I think Janet had some amazing promotional photos, and I love the 24 play video. I thought it was great. I think Janet would have done a good job in the film, but um, I think that role was for Holly because remember it was Holly, it was Janet, and it was Whitney that were all fighting for that role. And I think at one point, I don't know if it was Janet had the rights to the story and Holly had something else, and Whitney I don't remember how it worked, but all three of them were they were campaigning to get that role. So I'm happy Holly got it though, because I think Holly did an amazing job. Um, I wanted Janet to do an action film. Like I would have loved for her to do an action film sometime between 1990 and 2004. Like she still can do it if she wants to, but I don't know why they never thought to put her in one of those. Like her fighting. I know X-Men was an idea or an option at one point for her to be Storm, but like Janet would have been a dope, you know, action flick actress. Just think of how well she executes choreography, and then imagine them choreographing the fight scenes. Like she would have been right up there with like Uma Thurman and Kill Bill, killing it. I like that would have been so dope. I'd like to see her do another comedy. I know there have been rumors about Tyler Perry wanting to do a Why Did I Get Married 3. Uh, don't know if I want one of those. I like both movies, but I don't think we need another one. But maybe Tyler Perry can release the funeral scene from how Why Did I Get Married to how it was supposed to end, as opposed to the piece with The Rock. I just want to see what the scene was like. But they said they took it out because it was just so sad. Because that's all, she's filming that movie around the time Michael died. So maybe it might have just been a lot. But I cannot believe it's like 500 people listening to me rant about Janet. Wow. All right. Feedback video, hands down. Yeah, feedback. That was my song. The video I learned to love. I didn't like it when it first came out because I wanted a little bit more because I thought Feedback was such a great dance track. Like as a choreographer at that time, that song was gold. Like people like Janet, Usher, Sierra, sometimes Britney, J Lo, Chris. Every time they would come out with something, the way people that used to choreograph, the way we would go and just skim through their CDs and try to find what songs we could make a routine to for whatever shows we had. Like Feedback came out. That what a time. I loved that song so much when it came out. It just was hard hitting and thumping. And so the video was cool, but it just took so long to get to the choreography. It was killing me. Like by the time she got to the second verse and she was still climbing on that planet, I'm like, Janet, where is the dancing? But she made up for it on the tour, so it was cool. Because Rock With You tour, I was eating all that up. Janet was on the floor, and she was trying to flip the hair, but the mohawk didn't really move, so she just flipped, and the mohawk would stay still. I'm like, okay. But yeah, what a time. Feedback with my song, and it still sounds good live. I think of her later songs, especially with choreography, All Night Don't Stop sounds the best in a concert venue. Like the way All Night Don't Stop shook Madison Square Garden at that Rock With You tour, it was crazy. I was like the whole place. It's like you could feel it in the seats. She was killing it. I was like, man, go ahead. What else? Throb sounds really dope too live. Like it sounds like super super dope. What else? Um yeah, that'd be kind of cool. Let's see. I'm gonna keep it scrolling. Jerry Jaguar said, guys, if you saw her I Get Lonely choreography for the Metamorphosis, where she did the leg extension at 53, you would have known she can still execute a fight scene. I was caught off guard when she did that number. I didn't know it was gonna get that raunchy. I was like, damn, Janet, I didn't know you were still doing that. All right. That was a fun show to go to. Vegas was fun. I was mad though, because I went to the very last night of the Metamorphosis show, and so she had like the after party, and the after party was in like the little club that's next door to the venue, and so I'd already been in there for like 2 hours. They had two or three different rooms. One room was like all the throwback stuff. The other room was all the current stuff. So I was in the throwback room, and everybody in there was trying to relive their dream because some of Janet's dancers were in there too. So everybody was trying to live their dream of being a choreographer. So folks was in there trying to break dance and spin on their heads. And then I finally went upstairs at like 1:30 in the morning. Like, all right, Janet's not coming. As soon as I lay down, so I was like, "Oh my God, she's in here!" I was like, "Shoot!" I had to run back downstairs, and by then I had laid down. My hair was all lopsided, and then the crazy part was like Janet was sitting in the section that I had just left, and now they roped it off, so you couldn't get in it. But if you were in the section before her team came, they let you stay. So I was like, "Dang it! I shouldn't have gone upstairs." And so I was looking like a loser standing by the rope, hoping somebody would recognize me. I was like, "Dang!" Good time though. Um, Let's see. That's a good point. M Town 95 Townsend. We will never see superstars like we saw in that era. Social media destroyed that. Entertainers are too accessible nowadays. I and it's crazy. I said that in a video years ago where I said like the era of the superstar was dead as far as like the kind of impact that they made. And people wanted to fight me on it. I'm like, it's the truth. Times are just different. And then music is so oversaturated where again, everybody at this hell, even I got music out. So, everybody and their mom is an entertainer. I think people like Prince and some of those earlier ones, they just came out at an era where the industry was still, to an extent, so new as it was being introduced to the rest of the world. I mean, the music industry has been out since the early, 1900s, but like as far as the form that it would take during the 80s and the 90s and the 2000s was still so new. So people like Michael and Whitney and Janet or Madonna or Prince, um, some of the other greats, they really were able to kind of harp on during this era that was closed off to those who came before them and closed off to those who came after. And it's not saying that the people who came before were not successful or anything, but it's just that emergence of like the MTV era and entertainers that were pop icons now also being like household names in regards to being on like magazine covers and having the different. I don't know. There's just so much that was going on then, and it's just interesting. It's interesting to look at superstars from the 60s and 70s compared to the 80s and the 90s and how much it changed in the industry. Because again, in the 70s and the 60s, they were still selling out stadiums and arenas too. But it's just interesting. So much that can be said. Oh, Kirsten Doe said, "What was your reaction to watching the tension between Janet, Jimmy Jam, and Terry in the studio?" That's what I like to see. That's when the best stuff come out when y'all being there cussing each other out. That's when y'all come to that common ground. I like it. You get to see Janet out of her element, so I like that. I enjoyed watching that. And clearly, they had a relationship where they could do that and they'd be fine the next day. So it's kind of like when you have you and your siblings, y'all be fighting and cussing each other out every single day, but then nobody better say nothing about your sibling or whatever. Um, Tony Ross back in the day music videos now says, "Do you know Janet now? Like personally? No, I don't know her personally. I've been in a room with her a whole bunch of times, but no, she and I have never officially met. I'd love to produce a song for her though. I'd love to make a nice up-tempo track for her. Oh, look, Janet, just hire me to sing backup on the tour. Like, let me just do that in the back. Actually, let me be a dancer. Let me do that. I'll be ready." Erica J said the Miss You Much chair routine was it for me. Amazing. Yo, and then she even did that on the Rock With You tour. That's why I'm telling you, I was gassing that tour up. She was doing Miss You Much, and then them tours rolls up, or them chairs rolls up out of the floor. I said, oh, it's on. Like that was my show. That was a fun show to go to. And none of my friends wanted to pay what I paid. And I didn't even pay that much. I think I paid 125 and I was like 6 rows back. They would not pay that. So the friends that did go were all in the nosebleeds. But apparently it was a good show from up there too, because at least the lights and stuff look cool. But I was like, if I'm gonna see Janet, we gonna do it correct. I want the sweat to hit me in the face when she does whatever dance routine she does. Like I want to feel the heat from the pyrotechnics a little bit. I don't like being too far. Um, Um, where we at here? Oh, Nigel M said, plus nowadays, a lot of entertainers put their unlikable behavior on stage. I do think a lot of, especially on social media, there's a lot of people who just do it wrong. They do it so wrong. I'm just like, man, y'all just be dropping the ball so many times with certain things, giving opinions that you don't have to give. And then when you get called out about it, then you want to be all in your ego and double down. I'm like, yo, sometimes I wish social media was never a thing, but I don't know. I wonder what society would be like if social media didn't exist today. I mean, y'all wouldn't be sitting here right now, but interesting. Tamika Miles said, I love the use of the music or her music in the background on the doc. I like that too. And they used a lot of music from like the album tunes because I heard them playing Tonight's the Night. I heard them playing Lesson Learned. I think I heard, well, there were some singles. I know I heard Let's Wait a While in there at some point. Um, but I liked it. That's kind of dope. You Can Be Mine, I think, was in there. You can be mine. Jedi Doll said, was the rope velvet? Yes, it was. And so, Janet, I got beef with you because when you was promoting the Velvet Rope album, you were saying, everybody has a need to feel special. So I'm standing at this party and you're just right. And Janet was like, I'm here. Janet was where that mural was. She was that close. And I couldn't get in. That security, Janet got like some top-notch security. They would have broke me in half if I would have tried to climb under it. And so I'm just watching all the fans that got boarded up inside of the little section with the velvet rope. And then they're all getting a moment to go and talk to her and sign autographs. And I'm watching them tell her how great she is. And I'm just on the side. So I'm so happy for you guys. I'm so happy for you. That's kind of like when I was at TRL. And I remember there was a girl in my section that had drew, or she like painted. She was an artist, and it was like this graphic she painted that mirrored Janet during "Got Till It's Gone." And so they let her give it to Janet. I'm like, damn, why I ain't draw a picture? And look, I can't even draw, but I would have drew like a sun in the corner of the paper. Play that right out, Janet. I drew this for you, but that's funny. Said, can we share each other's dream set list for her tours? I really want to see what you guys see her singing in an ideal setting. Well, if I had a dream set list, okay, all the main singles she normally performs already. But she's kind of performed a lot of songs. I would love to hear Come Give Your Love to Me live. That's a dope song. Come Give Your Love to Me. What else would I want to hear? She shocked me when she did Skin Game. I didn't think she'd ever perform that. When I was at Essence, and that was kind of cool because Essence was the first show of the second leg of the State of the World tour, so nobody knew what she was going to do. And so I heard that. I'm like, I know this song. What did I know this from? And then when I realized it was Skin Game, and then she messed up. This is how I knew her mic was on because she came in early to start singing the verse, but it wasn't time yet. So she had to stop and come back and jump back into it. I'm like, okay, come on with the mic being on. So Skin Game shocked me when she did it. I didn't expect that. And again, she did 24 play on State of the World because that was when I always wanted her to perform. I'd love for her to bring Because of Love back into the set list. What else? She brought You back during Metamorphosis. That's a favorite one too. And she brought Come On Get Up. It's like she's done a lot of most of the songs I've wanted to hear her perform, she's performed. Sexhibition would be a cool one to hear. Sexhibition. She did Island Life already on State of the World. If it were still 2004, maybe Love Me, like the remix to Just a Little While. She's kind of performed everything I wanted to hear, to be honest. Take Me Away. I love that one. That would be kind of cool to hear. Crystal Howard's girl said, thank God I was blessed to be born to see some of the best of the best. That's what I'd be grateful. Like, I'm happy I was born when I was born. A lot of them I didn't get to see in the peaks of the peaks of the peaks, but at least they were still around. Like I was around to at least experience the Dangerous era in history and Invincible and all of the Whitney eras, as far as from the body. Or actually, I'm Your Baby Tonight onward with Janet, Rhythm Nation onward, Prince. Ooh. What was 88? Is that Love Sexy? I think Love Sexy is 86. Let me double check really quick. Or is that Sign of Times? I think that's Sign of Times. Was 87, I think. Let's see. Let me go to Prince's discography and look through these 956 albums he has really quick. Prince albums. He got this man has 42 studio albums. Imagine. All right, 80. Yeah, Sign of the Times, 87. I was right. Love Sexy. Look at me knowing. Go, boy. All right. Yeah, it's kind of dope being around for all of that. Or Luther. And I always say we're blessed that we're here and Stevie is still with us. Stevie, Anita Baker, Tina's still with us. I'm still punching myself that I've never seen Tina live. And I had a chance to go and see her, but I was broke because I already spent my money on Janet during the Rock With You tour. And then Tina went on tour shortly after. I'm so mad I didn't see Tina. There's so many greats that are still there. So embrace them while they're here. I'm glad I was able to. And then the cool thing too, if you were a child in the early 90s, the seasoned vets and the seasoned entertainers still had viable like airplay and push on like the major networks and stuff. So I remember being like 5 and Tina Turner's I Don't Want to Fight No More was still on MTV, or Patti LaBelle's Feels Like Another One was still getting heavy airplay with her and Big Daddy Kane, or who else? Or when More Stay in the Time made a comeback with what's that song? Jerk Out. Gladys had a few. Gladys, in my opinion, always is. She's one of my favorite altos. Gladys, when she had like "Meet Me in the Middle," if you remember that song, it kind of had a hint of like Salt and Pepper's Expression sampled on there. Al Green still making music. His album that he came out with what was that? 2000. It came out the same week Usher dropped "Here I Stand." It's the album that had like "Stay With Me," and John Legend's on that. Like, it's dope that we're still here with all those people. So it's like embrace them while they're here. Shaka, I told you I just saw Shaka in September. Probably one of the best concerts I've been to in a really long time. Like Shaka, it makes no sense that she can still sing the way she does. Man, they were evasive about Janet's baby. They never said it's not true. I think they pretty much just said it was stupid. I don't think Janet has a secret child, and I think it's hard. First of all, everybody's already in all of the Jacksons' business already. There's no way Janet would have been able to successfully have it. I guess there were secret marriages, but there is no way a whole child would still be a secret today. It's just there's no way, because the child would have been 40, would have been like 40 by now. It would have slipped out at some point. And honestly, back when LaToya was telling all the family business, she would have told it then. Like, yeah, Janet got a child. And then on top of that, the DeBarge mother, I'm not gonna talk about nobody's mama, but yeah, she was the one that kind of reignited the rumors. It was like, yeah, she got a child, and the woman that she claimed was Janet's and James's child was like my complexion, probably a little bit darker. And I'm like, listen, Janet and James DeBarge aren't. Well, James is not really one of the brownest people out there. Janet likes to tan a lot, but she's actually pretty fair. I don't want to say fair skinned at all. That's not the right term. She's kind of a lighter skinned woman as well. So I was like, there's no way they're gonna have a child that's the shade that she is. And this is not to be like a colorist type thing, but like the genetics weren't adding up with the woman that they were trying to claim was Janet's. And so I'm just like, nah, I don't think Janet would have a reason to lie about that anyway. If she had a child, she would have just had a child. Um, can you look into the Jody Watley, Howard Hewitt, and Jeffrey Daniels, aka Shalimar, ongoing 40 situation? I'm hoping they work it out, because Shalimar been fighting since forever. I'm still mad at the fact when they were on the Babyface song with LL Cool J, when they remade, or Babyface remade This Is For the Lover in You with LL Cool J, and Shalimar was in it. Shalimar couldn't even be filmed together. They had to all shoot separate scenes because Jody was like, I'm not dealing with y'all. Nope. And that's one of my favorite songs. But hopefully they can make it work. But sometimes everybody's not meant to get back together. Sometimes there's just so much bad or toxic energy that exists between people. It's better that they keep their distance and go their separate ways. You wish them the best and you keep it moving. This is really about to end up being a 2-hour live. This was supposed to be 30 minutes, y'all. I did see that Howard Hewitt did apologize, so good on him. Plus, them DeBars, there's no disrespect. They got a lot going on. It's hard to take anything they say seriously. I'm not about to owe into that family as far as some of the things that took place, because certain things, I'm gonna leave it alone. Anyway, Tykel Williams, could Janet and Mariah do a verses based on writing skills? I think so. Yeah. Mariah has a lot more albums than Janet, but again, they both are artists that write their catalog. So yeah, there'll be some really great little gems that they could highlight. I said the same thing. Said I thought you weren't gonna be long, so I left and did errands, and you're still on. Who tricked you into staying longer? You know, when we get to talking, oh hey, we just start talking and rambling, and I don't know how to shut up and get off the thing. We be on here till midnight every time. Wait, it's 1:59. It's 1 o'clock. Well, I ain't gotta work tomorrow. Okay, Lord. Just know we ain't doing this tomorrow. I'm letting y'all know. Like this is it. I'll just have a separate video for part 2 because we ain't doing this 2 nights in a row. Yeah. By the way, don't forget those who want to do the book club. The first 5 chapters. That's what we're covering on February 7th. And if you want to be a part of it, all you got to do is click the Zoom link when I post it. Smurf Boy 92 said the Jacksons and the Bars have strong genes, and the girl claiming to be their child doesn't even look like either James or my point that she does not even look like she could be a distant cousin. I'm like, where y'all find her at? Like, man. Christmas said, I don't think anyone should do a versus against Mariah, even Whitney when she was alive. Wait, I'm sorry, I read that wrong. I don't think anyone should do a versus against Mariah, even Whitney when she was alive, or Celine, who's part of the vocal trinity. I do think there's some people who just don't have somebody to go against in verses. I don't think Missy has somebody. I think Janet, it's hard to put her against somebody. Mariah's almost in her own kind of lane, but I'm kind of verses out, to be honest. I don't like the energy they have with verses right now. It's kind of, I'm over it. I did watch the Shaka and Stephanie Mills one, but the people behind the scenes that run it, I'm not too crazy over, to be very transparent. I don't like the way they talk about some of the veterans in the industry. And yeah, it's so bought out now. It's not even fun or enjoyable anymore. What up, T? Oh, Charles Turner. Yes, it is true. Is it true that Tina Turner shot Randy? I am not gonna start going in on Randy, but Randy's an interesting character to me. But yeah, I remember, what book is that in? I can't remember, but Randy was definitely dating somebody that knew Tina, and apparently, I don't want to be all messy, but yeah, there was a situation that happened, and Tina had her weapon. At least that's what was reported in that book, and shot in his direction. Randy has lived. I remember he said he was kidnapped by the drug cartel in Colombia. But all right. All right, why are we going in on Prince? What happened? Prince did not love black women. I'm not doing that with y'all tonight. I'm not. I like the Black Sweat video. I'm gonna keep it moving. Is Essence Festival worth it? Essence is a great time. Like, I think Essence is fun when you go with a lot of friends. Like, me and a good friend went and had us a ball, and then we ran into a bunch of Howard folks while we were there. And so we got into everything while we were there. That was a lot of fun. And because there's so many shows, like I think together, no, I paid 400 because I bought my friend's ticket and I bought mine. So I spent like $800. It was like each ticket was $400. And that gave you access into every show, all of the symposiums and seminars and the events and the panels and all of that. And, you know, Essence is huge. So you have the events at the Superdome, but you also have stuff at the convention center, which is a few blocks down the road. And that convention center is already like huge, huge. There's no way you can even see everything. And so like Essence 2018 was when I went, but like I remember they were having the season premiere for season 2 of Insecure. There was a party for that. I ended up in some industry party I was not supposed to be in. I don't know how we got into it, but we were there. And that's where I said I met the Joey Harris guy, which is one of the people on Janet's teams. I met Joey Harris there. And then in that party was also like Bakari Sellers and April Ryan and all the CNN people and a few like industry folks and everything. Because there were only maybe like 60 people in this party. And so we were like, okay, well, we need to just pretend that we are important and let's just blend in. All right, let's not fan out over anybody. And then, of course, the different shows. And then New Orleans is already a really great city to enjoy as well. And we had a ball. That was fun. We had the, what did we have? Either it was a Dodge Charger or it was a Camaro with the top down. Like, oh, you can tell us nothing. That was a lot of fun. Essence is a great show because there's just so many artists that are there. Like when I think of everyone, you know, I went because Janet was there, but it was also like Erykah Badu, Jill Scott, Anthony Hamilton, The Roots, Kirk Franklin, Mary J. Blige, the Clark Sisters, Snoop Dogg. I'm skipping so many people. SWV, Queen Latifah, Brandy, Missy, Yo Yo, the Brat, I think was there. Fantasia, Teddy Riley, Keith Sweat, um, Blackstreet. I'm skipping so many people, but it was a lot of fun. So much fun. And there's just really good energy at Essence. Like it's crazy. There were no random fights in the parking lot or nothing. Everybody was just in a good mood. It was just all good energy all the way around. Like it was a lot of fun. I met a lot of people out there. And then I ran into some YouTube folks, which was kind of cool. This lady that was in my row, literally, she was like, and it was crazy because I was kind of acting the fool already because me and my friends had already had a good drink by then. And she was like, "Are you Calvin?" So I'm trying to straighten. Yes, I'm blinking hard, trying to focus. They had a good drink. uh, anyway, somebody said, "Can you make a video on Tierra Marie? Her career makes me angry with the way she was treated by her label." I know I talked about her in one of my R&B is Dead videos. I have to really go back and research on Tierra. I haven't really followed her in a really long time, but yeah, that's an interesting one. I did like her album though. Um, Jesse said, "It's Janet. You thought you was gonna do a quick live? LOL." I really did. Like I had watched the documentary. I was about to lay down. I was like, maybe I should at least say a little something, just to say that just at least have a conversation about it. And then I'll, go on to bed. I thought I'd been, knocked out by now. Oh well. Nakia Laney, Calvin, what do you think about people using Michael and Janet or Michael and Madonna sales to bash Janet? See, I think and that this is when I don't like the world of like standing in fan bases because there are some people who really just stand numbers and accolades, and it's not even about music anymore. And like I said, my sentiments on Madonna for what I said earlier still stand on how I feel. And I don't think you can weaponize Michael's success against Janet because listen, they're from the same bloodline. If anything, that just shows the kind of power that Joe and Catherine had with what they created. So I don't even look at it that way. And then again, Janet also lives her life and was in comparison to the other two. I don't think she was as pressed as a Madonna or even as Michael. Like again, Michael was trying to outdo himself and wanted to, and so that really became, something he was really aiming and striving for. And then, of course, as certain controversies came and he kind of wanted to just escape and be away from people, like things changed for him. But like Janet always was able to kind of live a little bit. Like think about this the space in between her albums. Janet's legacy, in my opinion, is cemented with those 5 albums. But look, those 5 albums spread between a 14, 15-year span. Um, so you think about it, like Janet went through all the 90s with 2 albums, plus the residuals of Rhythm Nation. Um, 2 albums in the 80s. And then, so like she wasn't coming out with something every year. She wasn't, breaking her neck to ensure that everything was going to be the top of the top of the top. She just did what she enjoyed and kept it moving. Her energy went to the tours. So it is what it is. And just because people have sold more than her doesn't mean automatically she is not a viable entertainer or that it negates anything she's done. Um, this is why when people start talking numbers and all that, I'm like, all right, well, what's the context and where is this going? You know, and I think a few lives ago we talked about, especially in regards to like a Madonna and why she was able to really blow up in the 80s. But that'd be another video. Well, actually, I already did it, so it's a few lives ago. I don't remember which one. Um, Dang all these Madonna questions. Look, Madonna. Oh, where can I watch the documentary? It's on Lifetime and A&E. I think it's on Hulu next day as well. And somebody the bootlegs we float around the internet in the next few hours anyway. I'm curious about what will be said about JD. I like Janet and JD together. I felt like Janet was the most approachable when she was with him. That's when you kind of saw her doing a lot of things that regular everyday people do. Um, she had a really nice glow when she was with him. I wasn't too crazy over like them working together career wise. Mine is maybe the "Someone to Call My Lover" remix, and a few of the tracks that were done. But I like them together. People used to fry them up, but I thought they worked for me. That was cool. I don't know if this is directed towards me or not, but I didn't say nothing bad about Prince. So I'm guessing that's for somebody else. Um, yeah, y'all about to do diaspora wars up in here. We ain't doing that. Y'all work it out in these comment sections. I don't know what y'all started, but finish it, please. All right, we're gonna wrap this soon anyway. Oh, if Janet could pair any producer, who could you see? I could see her singing some of your songs, by the way. Oh, thank you. I would love for. I liked everything she was doing with Rich Harrison. For the Demita Joe project. None of the songs were released, but what can I say was a great song, good vocal. Um, who's new that she could work with that I like? Um, I feel like Chloe Bailey has a very interesting ear in production. I would love to hear what her ideas would be for somebody like a Janet. I feel like she could give Janet something kind of dope. I could have saw Janet singing something like a Busy Boy off of Chloe and Holly's last album. I could see it for some reason. That would be interesting. Um, I don't know. I don't the newer producers I don't really follow as much. I don't know them all by on a name basis. But if we're going back in time, I liked what she was doing with Dark Child. Like Make Me was a really great song. And of course feedback and stuff. I would love to see where they could have taken it. I remember in '09 there were conversations of Janet going back in the studio and there were some ideas of like Janet and Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis working together. And I was like, that would be kind of dope. Or Janet, Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis and Dark Child. I'm like, that could be kind of cool. Cause Janet, by the time you get to All For You, she does start working with additional producers to kind of complement. Like with Rock Wilder doing the All For You song, stuff like that. That would have been kind of cool. So I don't know. There's so many new people. I think all of the talent right now are the people you haven't heard of, to be honest. I always hear and see so many great producers and artists on like Instagram or Twitter or wherever that are, making stuff in their bedroom or in their closet or in the garage. I've heard some really great stuff. And so a lot of the talent is out there. So hopefully these labels start looking at some of these people that are very self-made. Um, Durante seriously said, I wonder if a babyface record would work for Janet. I mean, they did Thinking About My Ex, which I'll be honest, I didn't like that song. Um, but I would love for her to do something else with Babyface. K Tronada's a good one. Yeah, I do like him. I noticed she did recognize his If remix and use it on the State of the World tour, the second leg. And I liked his remix of All Right. That was a really good one. I like that a lot. All Right is one of my favorite Janet songs, by the way. Something about that brass section on there. Oh, if Janet did pick a guy for Love Will Never Do Without You, who would you have chose? And that's in regards to the fact that the song was supposed to be a duet with Prince. Um, and they asked Prince, Ralph Tresvant, or Johnny Gill. I would go with Ralph, and I say that because they were both working with Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis around the same time, and Ralph has really good layered vocals as well. I wonder how that song would have sounded with Janet and Ralph Tresvant's vocals blended together. That probably would have sounded really, really dope. I think in one of my R&B is Dead videos, I talked about how um, even though I do all my own backgrounds, I do like it when artists bring in additional session singers and they blend together. And I think I referenced Tony Braxton's "Why Should I Care?" because on that song it's Tony, it's Babyface, and it's Shantae Moore, and the three of them sound amazing together. Because Babyface already has a very soft but silky tone, and then Shantae Moore has this like really sweet soprano kind of tone that she has, and then Tony has the bottom in her voice that kind of pulls it all together and sits as a really good mid in those layers. So like they sound amazing on that. So I'm sure Ralph and Janet would have sounded pretty dope together. So I said I like her by herself. I like her by herself too. Yeah, that's why we're here. But I do like to hear kind of she doesn't really do a lot of. I mean, she does do a lot of collaborations, but she doesn't at the same time in regards to other people doing like the backgrounds. You don't hear too many other people on her background. She does almost all of hers most of the time, minus the first two albums. Then you'll hear like Angela Winbush and stuff on some of those songs. But oh, I forgot about the Luther song. Yeah, the best things in life for free was a good one. That's an interesting mix. Imagine, you find out, oh, you're going to be doing a studio session and it's Luther Vandross and Janet Jackson together. You don't even know how to approach that song, but they executed it very well. And that worked. All right, I'm going to set my alarm because I'm getting off of this in exactly 5 minutes because I should go to bed. Um, yeah, I got a few things I want to do tomorrow. So let's see. Not me setting this clock for. All right. Okay. We got 5 minutes. Said I actually wouldn't mind her with P. Diddy. I remember they had the Son of a Gun remix. I didn't care for that one, but I did like. Oh, I think you just said it too. I loved everything they did with Dirty Money, but that wasn't technically Diddy's creative doing. I mean, it was part of it, but he had a really good team of producers. That's a really good album. Last Train to Paris, very good album. I even like Love Come Down, even though it didn't make the album, but I used to play the mess out of that album when it dropped. I just love that it was so different for 2010 with like the song with Ass on the Floor and Yeah, Yeah, You Would, and I Hate That You Love Me and Loving You No More, and I'm Coming Home and Hello, Good Morning. Like that was a dope album, honestly. It was very underrated. Even his Press Play album was good. Like the thing with Diddy, I don't think he has any bad albums except for maybe Forever, but even that one still has some gems on it. I just by the time he got the Public Enemy #1 and had the Spanish version, I was like, all right, uno, uno. I was like, Diddy, but yeah. All right. Anyway, y'all over here frying up. Yep, I ain't doing it. Said, did you eat already, Calvin? I did. I'm on this. All right, so I'm on this no sugar crave thing, right? I'm trying to get my core to look a little bit better because its age is starting to catch up with me. So I have to be careful of the stuff I eat. So I'm trying to cut sugar. It's kicking my behind. Um, and yeah, I've changed my workout routine too. So I'm just trying to look. I'm gonna be looking real good in the summer. I'm gonna tell y'all that summer's gonna be lit. So yeah, I've already eaten for the day, but I've also had to make a rule to not eat late as well because I'm notorious for eating at like 1 a.m. something all super heavy and then feeling like crap in the morning. Oh, by the way, did anybody watch the A&M documentary? Because they Janet is in that as well. About Herb Albert and the other guy that started A&M Records. It's like a two-part. It's on, I think it's on Showtime. It's actually pretty good too. And they kind of cover just the label from beginning to end and all of the jazz acts that were on the label and really good watch. So that's a good one too if you want to watch. I forgot what it's called. I need to get off this soon because I think the West Coast should be trickling in soon because I think it's already going off over there. um, Hey guys, Hector Rodriguez said, I love Blackstreet and Janet's Girlfriend Boyfriend. That was I hated that song didn't blow up. I was obsessed with that song when I first heard it. I love that song. It was a fun. I still play that one. There's certain songs that came out in like 98, 99 that I play so much, like they just came out. That one, LL Cool J Phenomenon. Anytime it comes on, I'm like, hey, anything with a good little oomph to it, I'm down. And I thought the video was really cool. That was one of the first music videos I saw when I got back to America. Was Girlfriend Boyfriend from Blackstreet and Janet. Because I moved back to America in June of '99, and by then the song was already old. But that was one of the first music videos I saw when I got back to America. Um, what's your favorite Janet album? Velvet Rope's always gonna be mine. That's when I joined the ranks of the Rhythm Nation. Um, yeah, that's one of the first albums I got on my own as well. Like I think the first two albums I owned that were mine and not my parents. It was this is corny, but it was Big Willie style, Will Smith. Leave me alone. I was 9. It sounded good. All right. It's actually still a nice album. It's very clean and it's a little cheesy, but for a 9-year-old, that was a very nice album. That one and Velvet Rope I got around the same time. And they were such a contrast because I didn't listen to Big Willie style. And I'm like, this is a fun album. And I put on Janet and I got Janet after I watched the Velvet Rope tour special. So it was kind of interesting because I knew her music, but I didn't know I knew her music like that. So when I was watching the show that time, she did If, because I remember this so vividly. Like this is it had to be like the end of '98. This lady, her name was Sergeant Senior, had just moved to Italy because this is military base. And my parents were having like some kind of house party gathering, and Sergeant Senior had just moved to Italy from the United States. And she's like, "Oh, well, I do have a tape on. We can either it's Steve Harvey live in Augusta. That's the Steve Harvey special when he got the yellow suit, and I just recorded Janet's Velvet Rope thing." And so my mom, being a hater, I want to watch Steve Harvey. I'm not trying to watch no Janet. My mom she likes Janet, but because my dad liked her a lot, I think Janet got on her nerves. So my mom, I don't want to watch that. We gotta watch Steve Harvey. So they watched the Steve Harvey thing, and then me and my dad watched the Velvet Rope like the next day. And so anyway, when I was watching it, I remember when I heard her name, the only song I could think of at the time was "That's the Way Love Goes." I remember that one, and I was like, "What other Janet songs do I know?" I couldn't realize. I was like, "I know her music, I know it." And then so I watched the show. As soon as she did "If," I'm like, "I remember this," because I could remember seeing the music video, but I couldn't remember what the song sounded like because "If" would have come out when I was like 5 or 6, and so she does "If." I'm like, "Okay, I know that." And then I didn't know any of the songs from the Control medley at all. I didn't know. I knew Again because my dad, this is not a kid movie, but we went and saw Poetic Justice at the movie theater, like the outdoor one. Back when we lived in Washington State, there used to be this outdoor movie theater right off South Tacoma Way. I think it's a swap meet now, but we watched it there. I fell asleep through it because it's not a kid movie. I just remember seeing Janet walking by the mail truck as a kid, but I don't think I saw the movie as a whole and understood it until I was like 12. Um, the Escapade medley, I knew Runaway. I knew Runaway because I remember watching it on Soul Train randomly, and they were playing it in the background, and it was one of the episodes where Bill Bellamy was hosting. Um, I Get Lonely, I knew because the Italian radio was playing it. What else is on that tour? I had never heard Rhythm Nation in my life at that time. I knew That's the Way Love Goes. And Together Again, I didn't know it was Janet. They were playing it on the radio at the time, but I didn't realize it was her. So it was kind of like watching the show and putting the pieces together. And then when I got the album, and now I was like, I was trying to remember the songs from the album that I saw on the concert. So it was interesting, but that's my favorite album. That was a long story. I don't even know how I got. I'll give the runaround to answer a simple question. Anyway, this thing should be ringing any second now. Let's see. Feel It Boy was a good song. I like that one too. I even like the remix. I am jealous of you, Durante. Seriously, Velvet Rope was his first concert. I wish that's the one show I wish I could have seen live. And you know what's crazy? I've seen a lot of footage from other places, and it's almost like the Madison Square Garden show wasn't even the best show of the Velvet Rope tour. I'm like, dang, like I keep seeing those clips from the stadium show in South Africa, and I'm like, Janet was killing it on that one too. I'm like, dang. So wow. Hmm, hmm, hmm. This is a long 5 minutes. Did my thing go off? Wait a minute, hold on. Oh, you listen, y'all. This is how I know I'm tired. There's supposed to be a timer. I set the clock to 1:21 p.m. Life. We're getting off, y'all. Anyway, this has been fun. So yeah, let's definitely watch the next one. I'll talk about it in my next video. Like I said, I'm probably not doing a live tomorrow, but this was fun. This 30 minutes turned into 2 hours and almost 30 minutes. So wow, good music talk. Yvonne Houston said overall was okay, but she was compared to her counterparts. She was the one we as younger African American women and teens looked up to in the 80s, not the ones that she was compared to in the 90s. Yeah, I think everybody has their favorites. Rhythm Nation is a close second for me. But honestly, those five, it always circulates. Out of the five, Janet was my least favorite, but it's still a good album. And that's a lot to say honestly, because Janet is actually a really good album. But I just think Control, Rhythm Nation, Velvet Rope. Actually, whoa, hold on. Actually, I put Janet over All for You. I take that back. I don't know. It'll come to me later. But out of them five, them three, Control, Rhythm Nation, Velvet Rope are my like top three out of the five. But I love the imaging from the Janet era. Anyway, guys, this was fun. That's all I got. Please stay safe, stay sane. A lot of you guys on the East Coast, I know the weather's really bad, so please drive carefully, especially with all that snow and that ice. And yeah, thanks for hanging with me. I really thought this was gonna be a live with like 30, 40, maybe 70 people on it, not like 500. So interesting. Oh, still on here fighting. Y'all won't let me leave, guys. I'm going to bed. It's 1:25 in the morning. So anyway, I'm out. I'll see you guys. Like I said, book club, February 7th, 9 p.m. I'll have the link in the community page. We'll have some stuff before then. And yeah, we'll definitely watch part 2 tomorrow and we'll catch up. All right, y'all, I'm out. Good night.